like asking Ukraine to investigate his political opponent. Right. That's corrupt, and you're trying to cheat in the election. That's the narrative that I'm getting from this.
For him to tell the Justice Department, hey, I heard about some shit. You guys need to pair up with the Ukraine, with the Inspector General over there now, and investigate what happened. Mm-hmm. That is how that should go.
Asshole's one of those protected classes, man. I mean, you can call yourself an asshole, but the minute somebody else calls you an asshole,
it's not a good thing to be an asshole anymore.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, because that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And just like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship, we are back to Salt of the Streets podcast.
This is Saturday, January 25th, 1:45 p.m., episode 77. Also, it's 2020.
Whoa. Welcome back, everybody, to Salt of the Streets podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary on all the weekly news, pop culture, and sports that you can handle. And the best part about the whole deal, it's all built for you, people like you and me. We built it from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday, normal person. So come down and join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and continue our endless efforts to bridge the gap between people and information. As always, we are your hosts. I am Colin.
I'm Donovan.
And coming up on this week's show, we've got impeachment talk. We've got some smoking age talk, a listener request. We've got a kind of a local state issue, but definitely wide-ranging political implications around the nation. So it's all about this $30 car tab.
Tim Eyman and shit.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers being sued by the state.
And it's going to be interesting. So we got some of that talk. Both of those are listener requests. So shout out to both you listeners. And we also have some Virginia gun legislation, some free speech, and weird stuff going on.
Come and take it, bitch.
Virginia is a very weird place right now politically.
Super weird.
So we'll get into that. I even have some stuff, if we have time, about that lawsuit going on for I-1639.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you talked. I looked up a few things. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So it's
Did you know?
Going.
I found. In the wake of all of these discussions, of new gun legislation in Washington state and whatnot, I found online a free 1-hour course to certify you for I-1639.
Check. Send me the link.
So there you go. I'm going to do that tomorrow, I think, and get it all fucking squared away.
Dope. Because the thing that really, like the rabbit hole I went down with that, because you had just kind of offhandedly sent me that lawsuit thing that was going on.
Yeah.
And so I started looking into it, and then I started looking into like different jurisdictions of law enforcement that are coming out and saying that they're not going to enforce the laws, and there's possible constitutionality problems. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on like that in our state. And it's something similar we've seen in other states where they've tried to crack down on a lot of gun legislation. Virginia, I think, is a perfect example of people coming up in arms about that.
And this, I have an article here. Oh, this is from November. Northern Arizona County declares itself Second Amendment sanctuary county. Yeah, I saw something the other day that Arizona, the state, was trying to do something.
Would that surprise you in the least? Given Arizona's kind of
Second Amendment sanctuary in Arizona. Yeah, I saw something the other day that they were talking about. Maybe it was just a fucking thing, but I thought that I saw something the other day. So don't hold me to this. But I thought that I saw something the other day that was talking about Arizona as a whole was talking about trying to declare themselves a Second Amendment sanctuary so they could tell everyone to fuck off.
Wouldn't surprise me,
but
we'll see.
Updates to come. I'll let you know if I see anything about that. So, like I said, don't hold me to it.
Oh, dude. What was I just talking about before we started recording? I already forgot. I was like, oh, dude, I'll lead with that before we do
the studio.
Moving. Nope. It was something to do with
Tim Eyman, $30 car tabs.
Yeah. No.
Gun legislation.
Smoking.
The lawsuit. You were talking about the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Counties. Shit.
Oh, well. Must not have been that important.
Oh, well.
Dude, we do that all the time because in between, like right before we start the show, in between the pre-show and the regular show, like we don't just stop talking because the camera's not rolling.
Yeah.
And so we'll like get going and like, oh wait, no, this is a really good. Just stop talking about this. Let's jump into the show. We'll talk about it then.
What were we talking about?
I don't remember.
Yeah, because it was something. I feel like it had to do with guns. I don't know.
Yeah, like if I felt like it was
Spending
probably
money on
about
something.
guns.
I don't know.
Dude, I don't know.
Let me tell you this, and we'll think about it. I have put the Land Rover leaks oil all the time, right?
It
all
does.
the time. And so I have obviously don't know that much about cars, only as much as I've had to fix. And so I've been trying to figure out like why is it doing this, you know? And it's got like over 200,000 miles on it, like just over. And so I think that like the seals, you know, or the valves, whatever they're called, the seals,
The gaskets.
yeah, those might be cracking and shit. And so I found a product, Blue Devil Stop Oil Leak, right? And you just pour it into the called
The oil?
the sump. Is what they called it. Yeah. And you just pour it in there and it's supposed to, you know, rejuvenate your fucking gaskets and, you know, hopefully stop your oil leaks. So I did that today on my way here.
Yeah.
And hopefully it ran better on the way here. Like it felt on the way here like it was already running better.
Interesting.
And then like when I got here, usually you can smell the burning oil like anytime I drive it. And I didn't smell burning oil when I got
It's
here
like driving
today.
the Subi.
Yeah. And I didn't smell burning oil when I got here today.
That's good.
So
Maybe I was gonna say maybe that shit's like, you know, Miracle Grow for your hair, except it's just some. There's a lot of those things like fuel system cleaner and we'll take 10,000 miles off.
Right,
it. And like
right.
that's fucking bullshit.
And
I don't argue the fact that it's probably better for you to put in your engine or something, but like, what are you trying to sell me here?
Well, and this one is like guaranteed to stop fucking leaks, you know, whatever. I'm like, yeah, sure, but I'll try this before I got to drop money into it, you know.
Definitely.
The Land Rover's name is Lando, right? As naturally, and so on my way to work the other day, I was telling him, I was like, I just need 1 year, you know, give me 1 year, and I'll be in a better position 1 year from today to hand you over to someone else who's going to do whatever, you know, and I'll let you have your time and I'll get another car and like everything will be good. But just give me 1 more year of solid operating without me having to put hella money into you.
I'll take care of you, sweetheart.
Yep, and we'll be
just
good.
Hang out.
As I fucking love that car. I really do. I bitch about it all the time, but I really like that car. I enjoy driving it.
It's a great driving car.
Yeah. Inconvenient all the time, right? Inconvenient all the time for many, many different reasons. But
I was going to say, you're talking to a guy that drives an 18-foot truck that has a hard. I have to think about the parking situation of my destination before I drive.
We talked about this last time, and that's one of the reasons it's inconvenient is because it's not a truck, right? That I can put hella stuff in it, but I can't.
But it ain't quite.
But I really want to build a thing to put all our dog food in, and that like has the bowls in the top of it. But I don't have a truck that. I don't have a vehicle that I can put 2 sheets of plywood in, you know?
No.
And I have to ask someone to go to the store with me so that I can bring 2 sheets of plywood home. And that's just supremely inconvenient, you know?
I'll fucking smoke it with you, bro.
I know several people who would, but like, I don't want to, you know? So it just makes shit take longer. So I decided long ago, and I'm sure I've said it numerous times, like, I'll never not own a truck ever again. Like, I will always forever own a truck, even if it's a nasty piece of shit that I only drive to do dirty stuff in. Like, I will always own a truck. Yeah.
It's a fucking tool. It's like having a tractor on a farm.
Yeah.
You know, we don't live in a city, man. Sometimes we got to buy big shit.
Yeah.
You know, we got to move. We got to haul stuff.
So when we get rid of this Land Rover, we'll buy a truck. That will be the next vehicle that I purchase for myself. Will be a truck.
Take out a small mortgage to buy yourself a truck.
Yeah.
Truck prices aren't that bad nowadays. They're just
and if you buy a good truck, you know,
new trucks are very expensive.
So they're so tricked out. They got so many little fucking, you know, switchies and swatchies and fucking all the stuff. They're so fancy now.
I mean, they're fucking beasts, but
right.
But they have like Colorados or, even like some baseline F-150s aren't that bad if you don't buy a brand new one.
I'll never own another Ford truck. Because I had that red truck and in the short time I owned it, I had to do so much work on it that I'm like, nope, fuck that. Never again. And anytime I went into the store to buy a car part, the dude's like, so why'd you buy Ford? I'm like, fucking asshole. I didn't buy it. Like, I was like a screaming deal. Like Jordan's dad sold it to me for, $500 or whatever. Yeah. And so like I barely bought it, so why'd you buy an F-150? Like, I don't fucking know, dude. I didn't know. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know.
And I will say this, the mechanically inclined car people, they judge you a lot,
dude,
for what you buy. Fucking homeboy Aaron.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a Dodge,
oh my God,
get out of here.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, respect for those people, but like, I don't care about that, bro. Does it work? Does it get me to and from and do what I need to do? My truck's a tool, bro.
When I first got that job at Bennick, I was talking a lot as I do, and so irritating everyone around me because they don't talk that much. They're like, it's a really pretty quiet environment in the cutting area. And so I was there for a couple weeks and I'm just talking up a fucking storm all the time. And so I'm asking people questions, just to try and get to know people and like make myself more comfortable.
How dare you try to be sociable?
Dude, the worst. And so I found out, that he's into cars and stuff. And so I was like, oh, well, like if you could own, and I didn't know that he built classic cars and like had, his dream car. So I was like, oh, well, if you could like own, whatever, any car you wanted, like what would it be? And so he's like, oh, fucking this and this and blah, blah, blah. I already have it. I don't even blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, all right, well, you don't need to be a dick about it. Like I was just trying to fucking, start a conversation. Like I'm just asking, So then he was like, oh, well, what kind of car would you own? And I was like, I don't know. Like maybe I was like, I might own like a Ford Raptor or something, like a nice truck. And he was like, Ford. Yeah, well, not even that. He was like, well, that's stupid. That truck is dumb because of this and this. And he was like, it's a waste of money. And I was like, well, the question was, if money is no object and you can own whatever car, so it doesn't fucking matter if it's a waste of money, does it? Like, Jesus Christ, man.
But you know what, man? I will say,
I hate people like that.
People like me and you, though, we need those people. So we don't, so when our shit does like crap out, we can be like, hey, man, can you help me figure out how to fix this shit?
Yeah.
So I don't have to spend $5,000?
Yeah. Dave has taught me a lot of shit,
they always do. So that's dope, at least.
Aaron is a dick, but he's a good guy. So if whatever off chance you're listening to this, Aaron, you're a good guy. You are.
And I think we even had a conversation once or twice about the fact that he considers himself an asshole, if I remember this right. And it's like, well, that's the way I like it. I was like, that's fine.
But there was also other conversations where someone else would call him an asshole, and he was like real uneasy about it.
Well,
and he would ask a bunch of other people if they thought that he was an asshole and would like kind of poll the area about whether or not.
I mean, asshole's one of those protected classes, man. I mean, you can call yourself an asshole, but the minute somebody else calls you an asshole,
it's not a good thing to be an asshole anymore.
That's the way I'm going to have to justify it.
If you want to hear us philosophize on any more personality traits, you can obviously follow us on our Twitters. I am at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. And Colin is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. We have our Instagram at Salt of the Streets, our YouTube at Salt of the Streets, our Facebook at Salt of the Streets, Instagram at Salt of the Streets. I don't know if I already said that. You can find all this on saltofthestreets.com, which is almost done. It's like probably over halfway done as soon as we get our asses together and we're done with our, which we're working. We're not. Too. Yeah. We've been cooking. Yeah. It's looking really good. So I'm going to say within the next month or two, we're going to have a brand new website up. It's going to be looking banging. It's going to be awesome. March, I guess, is our webiversary. And so by the time our webiversary rolls down, we'll have a new episode.
March 12th or
something like that. Yeah.
Which is going to be fucked because we got to decide if that's going to be the week we want to do it, like the second week of or whatever day that was, or do we want to stick to the 12th?
Right.
Regardless of what fucking day it is.
Yeah. So
that might get a little wacky.
The new website is quickly approaching. Yeah, it looks really good.
It does.
So that will be
I think it's very in keeping with our growth as a podcast, to be perfectly honest.
It matches our set. Yeah.
The set, we're definitely on air right now, which is fantastic.
100% on air.
100%.
100%. There's no doubt about it. We are on air.
Oh, my God. So how do you want to start this off today? You want to start with the big the big senatorial impeachment, or do we want to hit some of the other stuff?
Yeah. I guess let's start with impeachment.
Okay.
So let's see here. Let me write down my.
Oh man, I got so many notes. So I'll just say this as a quick aside while you get prepared here. Yes. I listening to the old Ben Shapiro show this week. I haven't touched it in weeks, and so I finally came back to it, and they started advertising this podcast called Verdict with Ted Cruz.
Okay.
And
was that just like on Friday that they advertised it?
I think so.
Because I listened to every episode except Friday, and I haven't heard about it.
Okay, so, that must have been that.
Or it might have been in the end of one of the episodes. Because I've been watching more shit on YouTube, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'll only watch his shit up until like the halfway point. I'll listen for a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah. Because they cut to like the tile or whatever.
But if whatever he's talking about doesn't really strike my fancy, I'll just move on, you know, at the halfway point. Like, it's not a big deal to me to...
Because I listen to his radio show every day, too.
Yeah, no, and I don't have time for that because I'll fucking, you know, I've been watching way more shit, and you can watch Pod Save America. You can watch because
you can watch it.
Yeah, they stream it every time, so you can watch it
on the YouTubes.
On YouTube's, yep. Okay. You can watch many episodes of the 538 podcast. There's a bunch of episodes of 538 that's on video.
Because they're hooked up with like ABC or something.
ABC, yeah. Ben Shapiro, obviously, the Young Turks, obviously. All of those things can be watched. Which I think I appreciate now that I started bringing Jordan's headphones into work. You know, I tell you, it's just taken more to like distract me from being bored. So even if I'm not watching video, to be able to look over and see video is just better, you know. So I brought Jordan's headphones into work too, so that I can always have wireless headphones because mine die pretty quick. So I'll switch back and forth. So yeah, I watch all that shit on the YouTubes now, but it's. So
I got a guy at work that does that. He watches, he just puts on anime all the time.
Oh, really?
And he just keeps it at the base of his keyboard, and he just sits there with his fucking wireless headphones on and just fucking drafting away on CAD.
Yeah.
And every now and again, I'll watch over like, oh man, that's a good episode, bro. What's up?
His Hell's Kitchen.
I don't even know where I'm at.
His Hell's Kitchen is fucking anime.
Yeah. I mean, now he goes through waves. The dude works like 70 hours a week.
Jesus.
So he's always got something going on.
I went, man. So you know, fucking Tina, right?
Tina?
Fucking, we went into Silverdale last night at like 7 o'clock. This bitch was still at work.
Of course.
Like, the fuck, bro? Like, you're
Normal.
here for 13 hours, dog, on a Friday.
Normal.
The fuck?
Normal.
Bro. You got me fucked up, dude. That's crazy. Man,
some people, I mean, I get it in some fashion, but I get it in a different fashion.
Not there, bro.
Yeah.
Not there.
That's like, I don't get that. But like,
we don't work in a cutthroat corporate environment, you know? Like, it's not like if you don't work that much, you're liable to lose your job to someone else who's willing to work that much, you know? Shit's gonna go down the same way no matter if you're there for 13 hours or you're there for 9 hours like you're supposed to be, you know? like it's not gonna be that's just fucking...
Hey, you know, that I'm sure it's been talked about multiple times. It just is what it is.
Good God.
I wouldn't let it...
Hopefully Tina's not listening to this. If you are, Tina, I'm sorry, but good God.
Well, I don't think you and Tina have a great relationship anyways, right?
You know,
really have. You're a very abrasive young man, Don.
And some people don't appreciate it. You know? I don't. I have bouts of time where I consider the way that that's perceived by other people, you know, and then there's other times where I'm like, I don't give a fuck, you know, like this is kind of where I'm at. And it just comes and goes as to whether or not I'm like really concerned about it, you know, and I'm not sure what triggers those things, but every once in a while I'm like, I don't know, maybe people don't like me because I'm an asshole and I don't blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, no, fuck that. Like, I'm not a dick. Like, I'm a nice guy. I just am also going to be 100% honest with you if I think that you're a fucking idiot. Like,
I think if more people were like that, it might be a little better.
I don't think it's inherently a bad thing, you know?
In the passive aggressive capital of the world.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't work well out here. People don't do that.
Isn't it? Yeah. Is it particular about this area that people are like that? Because I've grown up here, you know?
At least
I don't
in my experience.
But it's fucking bad, right?
I came from the polar opposite, where I lived most of my adult life in New York for a long time before I had moved back out.
Where people are very bold, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah. Where people will call you an asshole to your face and flip you off and then shake your hand
on their way
afterward or
to
something.
work.
Yeah. It's like, that's just normal. Everybody speaks their fucking mind there. And it has developed a certain breed of individual, and they're all like that, and nobody gives a fuck because it's just, hey, I'd rather have, tell me that he hates me for no reason and then not. Then the guy's a fucking asshole.
Rather than do things for me and pretend like he likes me when he really doesn't.
Yeah, that ain't no good.
It's fucking weird, right? It's so weird. It's so backwards.
And it gets very elaborate out here, man. People placate people for a long time just to be like, I don't, because you're not being polite at that point.
No.
You've crossed that line to like, now you're doing something that you don't want to do. And it's disingenuous to not only your own self, but also whoever you're doing it for or with.
Because
like,
then
you're lying at that point.
And then you're bitching about it afterwards also.
Yeah.
So, it's so bad.
That's
really
what people
weird.
do, man. I don't get it.
So if you don't like that, don't move to the Pacific Northwest, because apparently that's how Washington is.
Welcome to the Assault of the Streets Therapy Hour.
Yeah. So you want to start with impeachment, right? That's
yeah. And I did want to plug that fucking Verdict podcast.
Sorry.
That was, it's really cool the way they're doing it. Content wise, it's Republican talking points, more or less. It's kind of nice if you're willing to just listen and let things roll, because you're actually getting an inside look at like the way the Republican Party is thinking at this point and what they're thinking, options and possibilities. Because Ted Cruz is a pretty big mover and shaker in the GOP. He's hanging out with
big man nowadays. Yeah,
and it's him and the execrable Michael Knowles that co-host this thing. So, with the amount of time Ted Cruz calls into Ben Shapiro's radio show as
from what I understand, fairly frequently, right?
Yeah, they have a pretty good relationship somewhere, and you could tell there is some kind of deal worked out here where they're producing this podcast and they're doing it. Ted Cruz just got to show up. We'll throw your name on it. But because of that, it's really good. And every day so far, right after the Senate hearings are done, the Senate trial portion of that day are done, Ted Cruz drives from the Capitol to wherever their studio is in D.C., meets up with Michael Knowles, and they say the time on most of these things. It's like one of them, I think it was like 3 a.m, 1 a.m, 11 at night. So they're doing it right afterwards.
Well, yeah, because the first day, that day that they debated on the rules of the Senate trial, it ended at like 1:30, at like 1:22 or something like that. They finally voted for it to be done, which is fucking
and
weird.
To go directly from that to go and record a podcast for a half hour, it's actually pretty nice because you get a really fresh, hot take on what he got from that day in the Senate hearing, and it evolves over time. I was waiting. I was hoping, because we did have the first day of opening arguments for the White House today. Well, actually, it was like between, I think, 7 to 10-ish or so this morning. Our time.
Yeah.
And I was waiting. I was hoping that they dropped the episode before you got here, but they did it just now. So there's 5 episodes out. It's really highly produced. It sounds good. The content is really entertaining and engaging. Ted Cruz is a fucking natural. Well, obviously he's a politician, but I highly recommend at least checking it out for the perspective from the GOP, because what you're getting from the other. Right. The other side. We already know. And so to get the opposite side, to actually have some substantive takes coming off of each day has been really enlightening. And they've gone over things like they laid out how the first few days are going to work, what the overall schedule is going to be for the first week or so. And then it's very, very interesting. And I got some notes and stuff jotted down from those that'll apply to certain things that we talk about throughout. So I'll just kind of chime in with, this is what they're saying on the verdict.
The final amendments were voted down at 1:55 a.m.
Oh, yeah. That first day?
Yeah, and they started at 1 p.m. that day.
And that you cannot drink coffee or anything like that in the Senate chambers.
Water or milk.
Yep.
Those
and there's
are
a
the things.
funny story about milk, too, that Ted Cruz told on the verdict. And
Oh, really?
It's so like, if you're like a political nerd junkie, like you appreciate little things like that, but they're just stupid, inconsequential little things that are kind of funny. But
right. That's why it was just a weird precedent thing that you were able to drink milk.
Yeah, because as soon as you make a request or something as a senator during that type of situation, whatever the chair says is considered precedent at that time.
Yeah.
And this one time, this guy asked for milk back in the 60s, and they're like, all right. And so that became precedent that day. And so, like, now you can have water, milk, or chocolate.
Chocolate.
Yeah. So there's a lot of discussion about, like, well, now that people know that you can get down on milk, and Ted Cruz apparently was one of the first to ask. And so he, I forget what they're called, like the Pew Boys or something like that, the Page Boys. They're like, hey, like, you guys actually have any milk? They're like, well, no, nobody gets it, so we don't keep it. And they're like, well, could we find some?
I want some milk, bitch.
Can we find some?
Get me some milk, bitch.
But now they're joking like, well, I mean, technically, it's a white, creamy liquid. I mean, what's to stop you from putting a little chocolate in there and maybe putting a little vodka in there, having a white Russians, everybody getting sauced up. Next thing you know, it'd be like Parliament.
That's really funny.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, that was an interesting little tidbit I learned from there. The overall, how this was planned out from that first day.
Yeah.
We agreed to similar procedures, we'll say, that applied to the Clinton impeachment. So we have the first 3 days, we have 24 hours of opening arguments from... Oh, what am I talking about?
From the Democrats, the impeachment managers.
Yeah, the impeachment managers.
The way that it's stated is that they get no more than 24 hours over no more than 3 days. So they can take 3 days, which they did.
Definitely.
But they didn't have to. And it seems as though... Yeah, and it seems as though the defense is going to do the same thing because their first day was today and they only went for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So they get 2 more days, Monday and Tuesday, or maybe Tuesday and Wednesday. Because they don't usually do shit on Mondays.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why that is, but they don't usually do.
And they voted so that they're only working, they have to work 6 days a week. Yeah. Apparently. But
words.
And you can't work on Sunday. So I don't know if they will be back on Monday just because it's the special thing.
Probably, yeah.
So I'm thinking they will.
And so on Monday, they have Monday and Tuesday. And then after that, the senators, sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you, but then after that, the senators there who are, as we've talked about in the past, they're acting as the jurors in this sense, essentially.
And judges.
Jurors and judges, yeah. So they get 16 additional hours after that, which will probably be spread over 2 days.
I think so.
To ask
8-hour days.
Written questions. They get to write questions which will be handed to the Chief Justice, John Roberts, who is there, proceeding over the whole thing, and he'll read them, and then they can be answered by the impeachment managers or by the president's defense attorneys, the defense staff. I don't know. That's what they're called, right? It is the defense.
Yeah,
I don't really know what
White House counsel.
Yeah, the White House counsel. Because I don't know. So they're not all White House counsel. A good portion of them are at least counsel and deputy counsel members.
Yeah.
But so they get to ask 16 hours of questions, and then after that, there will either be an acquittal by the members of the Senate, or they will vote to hear more witnesses and more documents. And so if there is enough, that comes out in the next 5 days, essentially, or 4 days, that makes Republicans believe that this is legitimate or willing to vote for it, then they can vote to hear more witnesses.
All they need is 4.
Yeah.
And all they need is 4 because you only need a 51 vote threshold
just the majority
to go that route.
Yeah, you don't need the 2/3 like we're talking about, you just need the 51 to get more witnesses and more documents. There was, as we talked about when we were talking about this ending at 155, the final amendments, as we said, there was a series of 11 different amendments that were proposed by the Democrats to these rules. And they varied from, having witnesses, I think, was the very first one, or, to have witnesses was the first one. Then there was to subpoena the Justice Department for documents, to, subpoena the White House for documents, to request John Bolton to testify, all these different series of things, trying to get documents and witnesses entered into the process or entered into the record. And all of them failed along party lines 53-47. They were all voted down, which is not supremely surprising, but is supremely disappointing, that none of these things were granted. You know,
Yeah.
I like I said, not surprising. I know, not surprising.
I have
but
mixed emotions on it. Because I think we kind of made that kind of pretty clear when we talked about it before. Like, I don't think we necessarily agree on this.
Yeah.
But that's okay because it doesn't matter because it's happening whatever way it's going to happen. But like, I really don't think that we should, like, the House should have stuck to their guns and tried to fight the legal battles to actually subpoena John Bolton and all these witnesses and documents.
All right. So let me give you your,
because we talked about this.
No. Let me give you your dues, right? Because
Please.
It was on. Let me see. I have it written down here which day it was.
Because I remember you making the point about the fact that the precedent has already been set, that this is going to happen.
So check this. On the 21st, right, when they're in the Senate and they're debating on the rules, right? So there is a series of different senators there that are arguing in different capacities for or against, you know, why these things should happen. So when they're talking about, I think the witness is probably, so it's probably the very First Amendment. There was a Republican senator, I don't remember who it was, who was talking about how it was the president's job, how it was his duty to execute executive privilege in any capacity that he reasonably could, decided by the Supreme Court, to challenge Congress because we have a system of checks and balances. And I was like, okay, fuck me, right? I was like, that's total, like, and that's a little more extreme than what you were saying, but that's the essence of your argument, that it's his job and his right, you know, whether or not it's his job as the president to exercise executive privilege to try and check the legislative branch, because that's how this government works. We have a system of checks and balances, and the question of whose power is more is never really supposed to be answered definitively, you know?
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. That argument
strictly
made
on a
sense to me,
political level,
yeah.
I think it's a winning thing for the Democrats to do, because they say, hey, we tried everything.
Yeah.
And even if they could have gotten what they wanted, they would have gotten at least the majority of what they wanted. And I've recently learned about a new Senate rule that actually makes makes more sense for them to do it in the Senate versus the House.
Yeah.
But it's a really strange little statute that kind of got weird. But
well, and so one of the big arguments, kind of like we were talking about from the Republicans, is that we shouldn't have these witnesses in the Senate because the House could have requested them, you know, when this was still in the House, and that's what they should have done. That's how this should have been done, which I understand, right? But the only real strong argument against that, or even semi-strong argument against that, is that there was no chance of getting that done in this time period, you know?
But why is the time period important? First of all. But don't get me wrong. I want witnesses to be called here, because just re-listening for the same arguments for 3 days.
It falls apart really quick.
It does. And I'm going, I want to talk to some people that fucking know what they're talking about here. All right. We have a lot of speculative evidence, and I want to get some hard facts here that really make sense, because I think that you could probably make a good case in their direction if you chose how to approach it. But the way that it's going about, focusing on, you know, just the political aspect of it, like asking Ukraine to investigate his political opponent. And that's corrupt, and you're trying to cheat in the election. That's the narrative that I'm getting from this.
Which I don't understand. You know, that's the one that I don't understand. It is like you're talking about this argument of, you know, well, we had to get it done, right? We had this urgency that the Democrats are talking about.
Because the election's coming up.
Right. It falls apart really quick because you start talking about the election, but there's no evidence other than this. At this point, we have to just kind of call it an accusation of interference, right?
Yeah.
This is the only thing that you can point to that would even begin to say that the election would not be fair. And so I don't understand where that argument even comes from. You know, that, well, we can't guarantee that this is a fair election if it goes on, if Trump is still there to run in it, you know,
Well,
for why? Like, because he's not done anything that has interfered with the election itself. He tried to get a foreign government, totally wrong, right? I'm not condoning that at all, but he tried to get a foreign government to look up some research, you know, some opposition research essentially on one of the candidates, which could have swayed people's opinions. But that doesn't, I don't think that necessarily inherently makes the election unfair because there's opposition research, right? To talk about that you don't think the election can be fair makes it sound like he's hiring the Ukrainians or blackmailing the Ukrainians to actually change votes in the election, which is not what the fuck is going on here. And so I'm confused as to where the jump in extremity comes from, you know, this is really scary and we got to make sure this gets figured out, to he can't even be involved in the next election because it might be cheating. And I don't know.
Oh, here's a Republican talking point for you, which I think might hold some merit to that. By continuing this narrative that he was trying to cheat in this election, but he got caught, right? He got caught because of whistleblowers and this, that, and the other thing, and all these systems in place. So, yes, but we've also proven that, like, if he tried to do this in the nefarious way that you assume that he did, which is what the argument here is all about, is intent. But if he did this and then got caught, doesn't that prove against your own point that, like, why it's so dangerous? Because obviously he's going to get caught again.
We'll find out eventually.
There's enough people around him that fucking hate his guts enough to leak things to the press 24/7, write up, you know, all this crazy stuff that we've seen over the last 3.5 fucking years. What makes you think he can actually get away with it?
Well, especially because even before in the first accusations of collusion, right? When you're talking about the Russia collusion, right? There was this whole investigation, even before there was the Senate and the House investigations that happened into the election. And then the intelligence community did their own investigation, right? The CIA and the FBI did their complete own separate investigation because they were like, no, we need to check this out.
Yeah.
So
they were doing their jobs.
Independently of politics, this would have been done, which speaks to your point that if it's going to happen, even when it didn't happen, we still fucking found out about it. You know, when the Russians did it and he didn't have anything to do about it, he didn't have anything to do with it, we still found out about it. We still know that the Russians had their hands in the pie, like we talked about when they accessed the voting machines, you know, and they accessed the servers and shit. Like that happened and we know about it. You know, so
we've known about it for a long time.
How are we not going to find out? You know, especially when you're talking about, especially people from the House, right? These impeachment managers that are always talking about, oh, we passed these election measures and these election measures, and they're just sitting in the Senate. They're just sitting there. So why are you not pounding on that instead of this fucking strange election thing that you can't even really prove at this point?
Yeah.
You know?
That's, like I said, that's why I want more witnesses. Because and I don't know if this is how these things played out in, like, the last impeachment trials for
the impeachment thing is like not a good argument. They need to really back off of that.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because before they started talking about that, I actually wrote down here, I'll fucking read it to you, right? And then it'll be amended by what we talked about here. Before they started talking about the election, right? And, you know, this need the urgency and this has to be done because we can't trust the next election, right? I fucking wrote down, the Democrats seem to be making a stronger argument, probably because their argument is based on the Constitution and is being presented by congressmen and not most of the defense lawyers, right? I actually wrote this down because when Adam Schiff is up there for 7 hours or however fucking long he was up there originally, and he's talking about, you know, he shares this incredible quote from James Madison that I fucking put on our Instagram, and then I
so good,
dude. Excellent, right? They did an excellent job.
I don't believe for a second that you believe that.
No, but they did an excellent job of explaining and portraying and laying out exactly how broad the impeachment powers are meant to be, right?
Was this when that statement about the dangers of, like, a king? And
I'm going to read it. Yeah.
Perfect.
So this is from Alexander Hamilton's letter to George Washington in 1972, right? And this is a quote. When a man unprincipled in private life, desperate in his fortune, bold in his temper, known to have scoffed in private at the principles of liberty, When such a man is seen to mount the hobby horse of popularity, to join in the cry of danger to liberty, to take every opportunity of embarrassing the general government and bringing it under suspicion, to flatter and fall in with all the nonsense of the zealots of the day, it may justly be suspected that his object is to throw things into confusion, that he may ride the storm and direct the whirlwind. So
does that not seem does that just, you could just put that under his picture in his bio?
You could not find a more aptly fitting quote from 200 years ago than that one right there to fit the president that exists now, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you believe what the Democrats are talking about. And even if you don't, I still feel that quote is extremely fitting to the president that we have now, and therefore justifies immense suspicion about fucking everything, right? That's when you have someone 200 years ago almost writing about this is going to happen one day in the structure that we have laid out here. You got a fucking problem, dog. Like, that's a problem, you know?
What that truly is at its core is a warning against populism. And this is something. This is
1972, and that can't possibly be correct.
What?
This year it says Alexander Hamilton's letter to George Washington, 1972.
Maybe it was like 1872 typo or something. Yeah, that
can't be. Maybe it's 1792.
Yeah.
Is when that.
1792. Yeah, what am I talking about?
I just want to be, because I'm like almost 200 years, but I just want to be direct about because I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because they wouldn't have been alive in 1872.
No.
And so it has to just be fucked up here, and it has to be 1792.
It's like, dude, that people live for like 40 years tops back.
Because I'm sure there's at least one person who just listened to this and is like, 1972, you fucking idiot. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so hopefully you continued to listen until now because that was just a moment ago. But yeah, so over 200 years
we'll
ago.
Clip that for you. There you go.
So
well,
yeah.
What was I going to say? Madison.
Oh, so until they started talking about the election, right? I feel like they're making like an actually good argument, like I said, of laying out exactly how broad the impeachment powers are supposed to be, you know, and that all this argument about, oh, well, there's no crime here and that this isn't impeachable and this is bullshit, all for me especially went out the window. I didn't buy it before because I knew that this was the case, that it was political, but when
you hear that, you go, what?
Like, well, okay, well, fuck, right? That the whole point of this, is to check essentially everything. You know, like this is the check that the legislative branch has, like the end all be all check on the executive, you know? And until you're talking about the urgency of it, like you're doing a really good job, you know? But as soon as you start to talk about that this is urgent and that's why we had to rush through it, but also let's take our fucking time here, you know, and let's make sure that this is fair and that this is legitimate. And that's why we waited 30 days and we waited for this because we got to fucking wait. But also we can't wait too long. You know, we got to do it, but we got to do it before November, like probably around July, June-ish, we need to be done. We got to make sure we use all this time possible, you know? Like, it's just a weird, like, that's not a good argument. And it all goes to shit as soon as you know, as soon as you get to that point.
It has been from the Democratic side, because they're the ones that are pushing everything forth. It has been consistently inconsistent, if I could say that.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of hurry up and wait. Oh, wait, we gotta wait. Oh, wait, no, we gotta hurry this through now.
Yeah.
This is important. And I don't understand why that, I don't know, understand why you would even open yourself up to that. Because the last thing people want to do is just think that you're trying to talk bullshit because you can't stick to the same, your line of argument changes.
Yeah.
Like the reasoning for your argument changes, because if you're going to try to sit here and prove intent to these things and try to prove that he was doing it for purely political purposes or whatever, you got to kind of stick to the same argument.
Yeah.
And you can't keep throwing all your eggs in different baskets and hoping. I don't understand what's going on. It seems very chaotic to the point where they're doing themselves, I think, a great disservice. I remember what I was going to say about that populist thing. Madison talking about that. When it comes to because we're talking about this, he's kind of describing that king that will rise up in the chaos, right?
Right.
And a lot of people think there's a lot of correlations there to President Trump, because he does that's how he works. He creates a shitstorm and then somehow navigates his way through it to the other side so he can cause another one. And he just kind of gets away through all these little things. That's why every other week there's a new, problem in the Trump administration. There's some new controversy, but he's still here.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's so much when you look at Trump for like a power type of thing. Power is definitely a way to describe it, but I think it's all about the Benjamins in this situation. We've been talking about for a while all the fucking Scotland trip and all Mar-a-Lago and all this self-enrichment of his own businesses and things like this. Like that's what he's after. He's enriching himself, not necessarily trying to become overlord. He's just trying to get the fucking public money, funnel money into his businesses, just like his dad did and just like he did when he was younger, and like all this. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
To me. But unfortunately, that's not the angle they're choosing to run with. I mean, we've talked about the emoluments clause so many times on this show. I just never understood why they've never tried to approach things from that angle. But I don't know. So overall,
I think that it's, I don't know. I agree with you. I'm not sure why that isn't why it isn't a stronger point for them, And I kind of asked Derek Kilmer about that when I was on the phone with him that time, and he was like, I don't know, it concerns me. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I get it, but like if this is an actual legitimate thing that might be happening, and it's a pretty easy line of logic when you're talking about taxes and your companies and like all this stuff, and like we don't have any way to prove any of this shit because you're trying to fuck off about it.
And if anything, can we just realize that it's a much more complicated and complex world than it was back then, and we might need to try to like reform the emoluments clause, and maybe we should start taking some extra steps to make sure that we have some safeguards in place that if you want to become president, you gotta want to be president really bad, because it's a tough process to get through, or the transparency issue, like all this money stuff, like all this stuff needs to be cut off at its source, and everybody needs to be guaranteed that it's happening. And I don't know how we would begin to do that, but we at least have to start a conversation about it, because we've seen it over, probably administrations dating back past the Reagan era. I'm sure everybody's been doing this in some fashion, because it's kind of hard to just separate yourself from your entire life as a grown adult, probably with businesses and family ties and all this stuff going around. Every politician has their fingers in all sorts of shit. And now you're going to run for president. How do we know that you can cut yourself off from all that and actually be an impartial, just do your fucking job as the executive, as the president, and not have any forethought about how your actions are going to impact your private life back home?
Yeah.
How do you do that? I don't know if it's even possible nowadays. But
well, I think that's why people are more comfortable generally, maybe traditionally is a better word, with people who are politicians instead of businessmen. When you're a politician and you've been a politician most of your life, you are, outside of whatever money you're getting through your campaign and whatnot, and, the backdoor deals and shit through the companies. Like when you're talking about your actual private life, the money that you're taking in through your paychecks, like you don't really have that much to fuck with, because all you're getting is just the salary that you're getting from the government. At least ideally, that's what you're getting.
Ideally.
But when you own a business, for 20 years before you go in there, you got all kinds of fucking stakes in all kinds of different games, especially when you're talking about, hypothetically about President Trump, fucking stakes and schools and fucking, all these different things that he's tried his hand at. That's like, well, where am I supposed to not think that you might be getting money from? I don't.
And with a sleazebag like you,
got a lot of people that
it's just
talk all the time about, not all the time, but reference frequently him talking about giving up his presidential salary. I've not taken a single cent of my presidential salary, which is like, if that's the case, I think that's super rad. This last one, it was like he donated it to the opioid crisis, to different things, which if that's the case, I think is fucking cool. But I don't have any way to verify that you are doing that if you are not providing your tax returns, I mean, I suppose I could look up those charities, and see if they're able to publicly disclose that there was a donation in that amount from the president, or from the White House or from the whatever. But
see, I wouldn't even stake my money on that kind of looking at that situation. I would go enough in good faith for that, but I can't trust that you're not making. The reason you're doing that is because, money is no issue from you because you're already making bank from being fucking president.
And I don't mean to say that that's something I'm concerned about because it's not like on my list, especially of
it's definitely real.
On my list of emoluments concerns, that's not one of them, right? But that's a point that's used all the time. Though, well, why would he do that? Because he doesn't need the money because he's giving up his salary. That's like, that's fine that he says that, but in this world of emoluments concerns, and like, I need your taxes so I know that you're not stealing from the government. I also don't know this about you because I can't see your fucking taxes,
Yeah, in a perfect world, man, we'd get monthly statements about what are you spending your fucking money on,
So
dude?
the salary thing, like I said, is not like an everyday concern I have. It's not, but when that's something I see being talked about, I'm like, I can't verify that. Which I suppose I could. So maybe it's not, like I said, I suppose I could. So maybe it's not fair. I could probably try and look up. And like I said, I'm not saying that I don't think that he is, but it's on the list of things that I can't be certain about without seeing your taxes, and it's on the list of reasons that I should see your taxes and that you should want me to see your taxes because you're like, fucking bro, I so much don't need it. I'm literally giving my money away. I'm literally giving it away because I don't need it. That's cool. But then why are you doing all this other shit? Why are you doing all these other things that concern me so greatly? Why have you
got a lot of sus behavior, man.
You spent some third of your time in office in one of your resorts. That concerns me. I know there are apparently, and I've not
like, you say there's a way to make it work. Can you just show that to me?
Yeah.
Is that too much to ask? Can you explain to me how this by the numbers does not affect the taxpayers' money?
So let's talk about,
we got a little off,
right? No.
Little off.
It's relevant, especially to what I'm going to talk about now, right? Because Hunter Biden is one of the concerns, right? When
Hunter
you're
Biden
talking
and
about
Burisma are a big concern now.
Huge points of discussion, and that's when I was on the stories yesterday. That's what I was talking about. Was Lindsey Graham? After the first part of hearings that day, it's like, can you imagine what it would be like if this was Liz Cheney or if this was, Mike Pence's son that had taken a position in a foreign country at one of their companies and they're taking in this paycheck and now you're saying that there's no corruption at all,
and straw man argument much?
And it's another one of those things where the Democrats have painted themselves into a corner where they're so unwilling to give any ground at all that they can't even make the argument that absolutely Hunter Biden got that job because his last name is Biden, because he fucking is doing drugs and he don't know shit about oil companies and he don't know shit about any of this stuff.
Which he said himself on an interview on primetime TV.
And he probably shouldn't have taken that job. He said that, right? Yeah. So it's not like the Bidens don't know that he probably should never have worked there, But they're also saying that it had nothing to do with his dad. That he's like, yeah, it probably had something to do with, but I don't mean it had nothing to do with his dad in the way that like it had nothing to do with his name, but like his dad didn't get him that job there, and his dad wasn't involved in anything going on with Burisma. And when you're talking about this crazy argument that the Republicans are still trying to make about him firing this prosecutor, and that it's only done because Hunter Biden was working at Burisma. That's the only reason they fired Shokin.
This is the thing that I learned from the Verdict podcast. Ted Cruz is a 110% believer in the fact that we need to look into Burisma. And he lays out a timeline. And I think it's episode 3 that he does it. And he's got like a tweet that he put out for some shit, which is real schemy because if you want to actually see the thing, you got to donate so much money towards something.
You want to see.
So I fucking screen capped it and then just zoomed in so I could look at it. But then he also said it on his podcast. But there is on the GOP side of things. And so this is almost like a devil's advocate type of argument, right?
Yeah.
But this is what I'm getting from Ted Cruz. And this is their perspective on the Hunter Biden situation. They think it's important because they need to prove in some way, they want to prove that Donald Trump had an actual, concrete reason. He had good plausible reason to ask Ukraine to look into these things.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to prove. So they're trying to legitimize the fact that Burisma, which everything that I can find from back in like 2015 when the New York Times reported on it, like Burisma's corrupt as fuck.
Yeah.
It's run by a formerly, the old Ukraine before, the invasion and all this stuff. Most of the government in Ukraine were always, they were Russian puppets. They were all oligarchs, and they were basically all the same type of people. And this was the dude that founded and ran Burisma. He was one of those oligarchs. And so there was a legitimate concern for corruption because Burisma is the natural gas company of Ukraine. It's the biggest one. And that oligarch was also the Minister of Natural Resources, which was, it's mafia type stuff. You're handing out your own construction contracts and licenses and shit to your own company. So you're making hella bank off the people's money, right? Right. That's what you're doing. And that's what was happening. And the reason why the Biden situation happens is because one of Hunter Biden's business partners, a guy named Devin Archer, who he somehow or other, he was also business partners with John Kerry's son, who was, while he was Secretary of State, they're running around nepotism money, man. Yeah. This is a cottage industry in high level politics. It always has been a thing. Kind of people that aren't the ones that can't kind of crack politics and business the right way, the official way. They just use their fucking name and people pay them a shit ton of money so they can have a semi-close tie with somebody in the government. It's a very normal governmental nepotism thing. It happens all the time. Doesn't mean it's right. So anyways, his buddy Devin Archer gets on the board of Burisma, and then this was April 13th, 2014. And
that's how Hunter Biden gets on there?
Yeah, that's how he gets on there. So April 13th, 2014, he gets on the board. April 28th, 2014, the Brits, actually, their serious fraud department freezes $23 million in assets from Burisma, accusing them of money laundering. Yeah. Right. And it was on May 12th that Hunter Biden gets named to the board. So about a month after his buddy gets on, he's now got a spot at the table. And in between that time period, there's some shit goes down and internationally somebody's coming after them. Right. So the speculation there is they're assuming that there is some kind of speculative evidence that the reason he got hired at Burisma because his name was Biden, and that would set the government up because the oligarch and everything's well connected to the government to have a good line to the Americans because Joe Biden is the vice president. They can, it's a good line of contact to have. Yeah. To help kind of maybe get this thing gone.
Which is all well and good, right?
Yes. Which is all well and good. It's dirty, but it's all kind of just whatever.
But I mean the fact that they would want Hunter Biden to be there to corroborate this is all well and good, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's fine. I think it's legitimate.
We're not done yet. We're not done yet.
All right,
because this is important because this is why they focus so much on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So December 10th or December 8th, the New York Times reports that Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor general, is now investigating Burisma and the oligarch that's in charge.
This was 2014, right?
2014, okay. The end of 2014.
Yeah, yeah.
February 2nd, the oligarch's
2015.
2016. The oligarch's home is raided and his assets were seized.
Yeah, yeah.
February 11th, 18th, 19th, Joe Biden, as vice president, calls the Ukrainian president on all those days. So this is all happening within a week or two of this guy's house getting raided. On February 21st, Burisma lobbyist contacts the State Department requesting the Deputy Secretary of State to have a meeting. And apparently in writing, I haven't found this thing, but Ted Cruz insists it's in writing somewhere. They were telling the vice president that, or the government, the State Department will say that Hunter Biden is on their board. And so for whatever reason, they choose to disclose that. And so all that stuff kind of in place. The timing looks weird. Then you talk about that. Remember that? I don't know if you saw the video, Joe Biden bragging about going over to Ukraine.
I've heard the audio many times. Yeah, I've not seen the video, but I've heard the audio many times. Yeah.
And he brags about going over there with $1 billion and say, if you don't fire Victor Shokin, you're not getting your fucking $1 billion in loan guarantees.
Yeah.
And then 6 hours later, he was fired.
Right.
So the speculation there is that Joe Biden went in there to flex his vice president muscles and say, you need to fire this guy because he's investigating the company where my son's on the board of directors and he's going to get caught up in this. So you got to fire his ass. Now Joe Biden is corrupt.
And so they're arguing that it just so happened to line up with international interest that Victor Shokin be removed from that position, because that's, from what I understand, that there's an international consensus at that time that Victor Shokin himself is corrupt.
Yes.
And that he should not be in that position. And so Joe Biden...
we've talked about that before.
We have, yeah. And so that's why we've talked in the past that Joe Biden doing this, requesting that Victor Shokin be removed as Inspector General, it is not ludicrous, right? It's
because maybe he was corrupt, and Burisma being as corrupt as he would have verified.
It's verified internationally. Yeah. Victor Shokin was corrupt, right? And there's no question about that anymore.
So the concern was there'd be some kind of maybe quid pro quo thing where, like, you just kind of let this Burisma thing go, and then me as Victor Shokin, I'm corrupt as fuck. You just kind of get me in on the loop, and we're good to go. So get him out, get somebody solid. In the words of Joe Biden, we got somebody solid in there.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened to the Burisma investigations after that, but that's kind of...
After that, Burisma was investigated and found to be good to go. That's like, I've heard that in the previous hearings, and I'll try and...
Because I think, if anything...
I'll try and fact check that, but
the oligarch is probably the one who's corrupt as fuck, and he's just using his company to launder money and make himself a super billionaire.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that the company itself is corrupt. They might have been being used or been in, the board might have been in the know, but this is the argument they're using to try to call Hunter Biden in so they can justify Burisma as a just target of an international investigation into corruption. That's kind of what they're using. They're using Joe Biden's his little power play with the $1 billion loan guarantees to get somebody fired as an example of a diplomatic quid pro quo that happens all the time. So there was, President Trump asking for the investigations as a quid pro quo was no different than that.
Right.
So they're trying to tie all these things together.
So let me respond to that, right? Because this is what I addressed in these stories and shit earlier. This is kind of what Lindsey Graham was talking about, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's all well and good. If that's what happened, then I think that it, may look into it. I think that's fine.
Proper way to do that.
Right. That this is not this, even if you have him come in, even if you have Hunter Biden come in and testify that all that shit is correct. Yeah, it was sus as fuck. All this happened. For the president to ask a foreign government to investigate that is 1,000% improper. 1,000%. Mm-hmm. For him to tell the Justice Department, hey, I heard about some shit. You guys need to pair up with the Ukraine, with the Inspector General over there now, and investigate what happened. Mm-hmm. That is how that should go. And
you should use your channels at the State Department and the Department of Justice.
I don't care what anyone says about, like, oh, well, what's the fucking difference? The fucking difference is that it's 1,000% improper. It's crazy improper. It's not right. That's not how it's done. There's processes for things like this to happen, especially if you're talking about an American family that's at the base of this investigation.
American citizens.
If you're talking about American citizens that are here, especially politicians.
Fuck, man, you could use the CIA.
When you're talking about them, right? If you're only concerned about the fact that there's people in the Ukrainian government that are corrupt, that's different, right? Which, not totally, but it would be way less inappropriate for you to say, hey, maybe you should look into some shit because I was talking to my attorney general and he's like, hey, this looks really weird. Maybe you should mention this the next time you talk to Volodymyr Zelensky, right? That would be less inappropriate. But the fact that there is American citizens and American politicians at the core of this suspicion, it is so crazy inappropriate to not ask, especially Bill fucking Barr, dude. Of all the people you've had attorney general, fucking Jeff Sessions and now Bill Barr, do you really think that neither of them would say, yeah, I'll do that? I know, of course, whatever you say, Mr. Trump, here, let me wipe my chin. Yeah, whatever you want, So I think that it's ludicrous, right? I understand and I agree with the investigations, right?
You were a half step away from
doing it the
right way.
That does not validate what you did. Mm-hmm. That does not make it okay. So I don't understand it. I get why they would want to have him in there. And I support it, especially if you're going to allow the Democrats to call witnesses. I think the 1-for-1 thing, that Adam Schiff is like, oh, this isn't a fucking whatever he called it, like a tag team or I don't remember what he called it, but like when they're going back and forth, that one witness for one witness. I think that's totally fucking fair. Totally fair. If you want to talk about fairness, then you need to be calling the same amount of witnesses, even if you think that it's illegitimate. Mm-hmm. And if that's really a concern, then I think that everyone should have allowed John Roberts to decide whether or not someone was relevant to the discussion and whether or not they should testify. Because that's one of the amendments that was voted on was that John Roberts could decide, whether or not he thought that the testimony of a particular witness would be relevant, and it still got voted down, Then what's really going on here, right? If you're not even willing to let the fucking Chief Justice of the Supreme Court decide whether or not something is relevant, then what are we really talking about here as far as fairness?
Now, does this harken back to the House investigation where they refused to call any of the Republican witnesses and stuff like that?
Certainly, but
it's a weird kind of red flag that you're sending up. Yeah. Why are you doing this?
It's weird.
You preach fairness, and
You've got all these things that you can point at, One thing that we should again discuss, so let me hit this first and then we'll talk about that, because I want to talk about the fact that the Republicans continue to talk about the president being barred from any process in the House, right? Yes. Because that's totally a fucking lie, and I'm really irritated about it. Mm-hmm. But I have notes here from episode 70. Right, when we were talking about all these things that happened with Burisma and the investigations. Yeah. So it was in February 11th and 19th, like you said, Biden again says that Shokin needed to go. March of 2016, Viktor Shokin is ousted by the Ukrainian parliament. In May of 2016, Yuri Lutsenko is the new prosecutor general. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. January of 2017, investigations into Burisma Holdings are ended, minus one oil sale that they did. In June of 2017, Rudy Giuliani meets with Viktor Poroshenko and Lutsenko. In May of 2018, the Ukrainian officials stop assisting with the Mueller investigation to preserve relationships with President Trump. In March of 2018, the election was happening, and Lutsenko will lose his job when Poroshenko loses. Lutsenko makes allegations about Biden in the 2016 election, and that's where that whole discussion of the impropriety started, was when Lutsenko and Rudy Giuliani were talking, and they came out with this. Yeah.
The only reason this stuff is even a thing,
withdrawn.
The only reason this is a thing is because fucking Giuliani got involved, and he's over there looking into fucking Burisma.
Right, and so the next prosecutor general, Yuri Lutsenko, was the one that ended the investigations. When he got into office, he's the one that ended the investigations, not poor fucking whoever it was that got ousted before, Viktor Shokin. Right? It wasn't Shokin that even ended the investigations.
No, they kept looking.
It was the next prosecutor general. So that's why I'm, mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that it shouldn't be looked into, because it's awfully suspicious, Yeah. But I also think that if you're suspicious,
got somebody in there that was solid and now he's not investigating.
But I also, in fairness, and I'm hesitant, to even use the term like whataboutism, because that's, I think, kind of weird. But I also think that if you're arguing, that it's super inappropriate for someone to get a job based on their name, then I think you have people in the American government that you need to be looking seriously at, that it's like, well, why is Ivanka Trump working in the White House? You know, why is Jared Kushner the head of peace in the Middle East and fucking all these other things? Like, when they have no reason to, they don't have any experience in this. You know, your question is about experience. Like, and again, I'm not trying to be like, well, what about this? But if you're talking about somebody who's no longer president, right? But you have somebody who's actively president right now who has the very same suspicions, right?
Yeah.
Then what?
Something about people in glass houses shouldn't throw rocks or something.
Seems
like
really
that.
weird, right? And that's so it's
a little
in honor of fairness.
Pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah. In honor of fairness, if that's really part of the concern, then we should look into what happened with Hunter Biden and why he got that job there, and then we should also look into why the fuck Jared Kushner is doing what he's doing and why Ivanka Trump is doing what she's doing.
And then you have to go down from there. How many of you politicians, what are your kids doing?
Yeah.
You guys, are they out there touting your name, getting fucking hookup deals? Because they are. But that's just, what can you do about it? I don't know.
How did Meghan McCain get on The View? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's like, geez, dude, her dad had to die. Okay. She was on The View well before her dad died.
Yeah. So I knew that I had it in here somewhere about what happened with those investigations. Yeah. But yeah, so like I said, it wasn't even.
So at the end of it, do you have to determine whether or not those were legitimate targets of investigation, or is it more about the process of how he went about it, or is it the fact that he should have just been like, no, I don't care about that. We're past that. It's all, he's running for president. I can't fuck with it right now, man. It's like send it down. I mean, I don't know how you would do that as the executive branch and be totally scot-free. I mean, you could try to announce it through the DOJ or something like that, or ask Congress to look into it, maybe.
As the president, it's the Justice Department. That's it.
The Justice Department and the State Department, right?
Yeah.
All executive branches.
Yeah.
Which he's the boss of.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's still sketch.
But it's at least going through the proper channels, that at least you're, if he asked the Justice Department to look into it, he's just said, hey, look into this. And at that point, it's onto the Justice Department. It's them doing it. It's, he's not asking a personal favor of another country or of another official, as the executive, right? He's allowed to make or ask the Justice Department to do whatever they want. At that point, they don't have to. They can say no.
Yeah.
They have
this
to.
Is unlawful.
Right. But they have to at least open up the window to see whether or not it warrants an investigation. And if it does, then they'll do it. And at that point, it's totally unbiased, at least as far as unbiased the Justice Department is, know? And then you're talking about the FBI and the CIA. They're going to be doing the investigations. If it's something in the Ukraine, then the CIA is going to be over there. They're going to be on the ground. The FBI is going to be working with the government.
I mean, what's to say? Let's throw a noodle against the wall, see if it sticks. What's to say this wasn't orchestrated from within the Biden family to implant Hunter on the board so that he can confirm whether or not something was corrupt and they can go after Victor Shokin that way? I'm just trying to draw some strings together. I think
the best case scenario, which is extremely unlikely, right? But if you're a Democrat, the best thing to do would be for Adam Schiff to come out and say, or maybe he would never do this. So maybe Hakeem Jeffries, right? Okay. Because he's like at least one step back. The best thing would be for Hakeem Jeffries to come out and be like, okay, so we decided that Hunter Biden should come and testify. Right. And then after Hunter Biden comes and testifies, they need to, as a group, and this also involves Democratic senators. That's why it will never happen. Democratic senators, Chuck Schumer included, needs to be like, you guys are right. That's sus as fuck. That's super suspicious. Looks really weird. We should look into it. I think the DOJ should look into it.
But they can't do that now.
But wait. But after he says that, he should. I know they can. That's why it will never happen. I know that. But this is for them to come out looking the best and to actually be able to make an argument for fairness, right?
We've been telling you there's nothing here.
Yeah.
Listen to him tell you there's nothing fucking here.
Yep. But when he's there and he's like, no, you guys are right. It's fucking, or even if he doesn't, but the Republicans are able to trap him in some shit that you can't deny it. You know, the same way the Democrats are like undeniable proof. Yeah. The Republicans will say that about Hunter Biden, and the Democrats should be like, that's pretty sus. You're right. It's really suspicious and we should look into it. And I agree, but the Justice Department should do it because that's the way that this should have been done. And so even though I agree with you that this is really suspicious and someone needs to look into it, it doesn't change the fact that the president acted improperly and inappropriately in his position by not telling the Justice Department to investigate it as we just did as Congress.
Yeah, when he tried to take the reins himself.
Yep, that's inappropriate. And it's abuse of his power, especially even if the defense spending has nothing to do with it. The fact that it's happening at the same time and the president didn't do this, totally inappropriate. And it gives the appearance of impropriety. Right? Yeah. Just like Joe Biden and Hunter Biden both said that maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't look good. You're right. You know, maybe it didn't look good and maybe we should have talked about it more. But at the time, I decided he was my son. He's an adult. I'm going to let him do what he wants. I'm not going to talk about it. Maybe I should have. You're right. The same way, like you said, Hunter Biden said, I can see why it looks inappropriate, but it wasn't. You know, the same way that they said that. That's what you got to do. You know, if you want to come out even looking like you try to do the right thing. Yeah. That's what you got to do.
Unfortunately, they can't do that because they've spent the last 3 days saying that there is nothing there, that it's totally debunked. There's nothing, which when you look at, when they talk about the angle of the server, the investigation to the server, because that was the other investigation they were asking about.
Well, the server thing's total horseshit. That's why.
That's where. Yes, that is totally debunked. A
conspiracy. It is an actual conspiracy that has. You're correct. Has been debunked. Is no longer valid.
I hate to do this.
So,
can you hold down the fort for 5 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't want to leave this yet.
Yeah.
But I got a piece so bad.
No, just tell me what the company is called. What's
Oh wait, I wrote it down. Because I couldn't remember it. Where is it?
They say it's not Crosspoint. That's something else.
I got a piece so bad I can't think. That's the problem. I'll tell you when I come
back. So, what we're talking about, this conspiracy theory is that there was. You know, I believe that we've talked about it before as well. CrowdStrike, that's what it is, CrowdStrike. And so the president asked the Ukrainian president, Viktor Poroshenko, about CrowdStrike, which is, has to do with the conspiracy theory where an American company worked with a Ukrainian company to, you know, move a server to the Ukraine and was hidden there by the Ukrainians, and not a physical server as the president seems to think that it is, but, you know, the server was hidden in the Ukraine that, you know, had all these emails doing with the Democratic National Committee and all this. And so this has been debunked. Right? It's no longer a valid idea, even in the slightest. And so they keep talking about it. You know, they keep bringing her up, and I don't know why it's even still being discussed. Right? I understand why the Democrats have to say that it's not important because the Republicans are still talking about it, but I don't understand why the Republicans are still talking about it.
Are we talking about the CrowdStrike server? Yeah. Did you remember?
Yeah.
Damn it. I'll let you down, bro.
That's all right.
Why is it still being talked about?
Yes.
Because Giuliani's involved and he's crazy. I can't come up with any other, because I mean, you hear it from even Ben Shapiro, like, this is dumb. This is bullshit. This is a total conspiracy theory. That's not right. Do you even know how servers work, bro?
Right.
I mean, do you understand how the internet works? I know you don't because you're 1,000, but like, you don't get it, man. That's some bullshit that somebody's feeding you and you're eating it up because you're dumb. So I don't know, man. Besides, it doesn't fucking matter. Unless you got some vendetta about still trying to lock her up type of thing and you're trying to, which I don't know, God, even if that's true and you totally believe it 100%, how vindictive for no reason are you?
She's burying herself, man.
I mean,
Hillary Clinton's burying herself.
Oh my gosh!
Don't you know that no one likes Bernie?
Don't you know? Is it just me, Well, okay, before we move on to anything else,
Yeah.
through what we've seen thus far, and the one day that we haven't, obviously, from this morning, do you think that the Democrats laid out a narrative that that speaks to the 2 articles of impeachment that they filed: obstruction of Congress and abuse of power?
I think that, like I said, the first day especially, when they're talking about, the broadness of the powers, and there was a timeline actually that was laid out by Sylvia Garcia, and I have pictures of it here. Just one moment. It was, let's see. President Trump demanding an investigation solely to benefit his 2020 re-election. What the fuck? So this isn't the right timeline, but she had a timeline of like media reports, right, having to do with the president, and then him also choosing to like look into certain things and have Giuliani look into certain things, and it did a really good job. And I wish I could find it. So I'll try and find it. I mean, if you go and you watch the first day, that's obviously going to be the best way to find it. But it was Sylvia Garcia whenever she was testifying. Yeah. She had these 2 different PowerPoint slides that, certainly did a good job making it look like these investigation requests from the president to Rudy Giuliani had coincided, with reports with Biden doing exceedingly well in the polls, and like him being projected to be the president in certain states and in like the overall, election. And
so the idea does this correlation mean anything?
Right. And does it have to do it? Right. Making it look like I said, that these requests benefited him solely, and had to do with his political.
Yeah, which could be completely
with his political campaign.
Circumstantial correlation, or you never know.
Yeah,
so, correlation doesn't always equal causation, but sometimes it does.
I think that if they made that argument we were talking about, they would be in a better position. That you're right. Or even if they didn't say that you're right, if they just said that this wasn't the way to go about it, to ask the Justice Department was the way to go about it, then they would have a stronger argument. But I think they really need to step back talking about the urgency of this, because that takes away validity from their argument, because it opens up more places to poke holes in it,
Yeah.
And when you're in a situation where you may not get any more witnesses or more documents, you need to have an airtight fucking case and only be putting things out there that make it apparent, right? Only things that are like I said, airtight. You can't be putting shit out there that's like, we can't even trust him in the next election. That's stuff that makes you look increasingly partisan. There's already people, Ben Shapiro was already taking shots at the impeachment managers being partisan because there's no Republicans on there. So, which I can understand, but when you have literally not one Republican willing to even consider anything being said by the Democrats, then why the fuck would you have any Republicans there? If you don't think they're going to try their hardest to actually prove that the president did this thing, then why would you have them there?
And let's not lie about what this really is. This is the Democratic Party attacking the president, the Republican Party. This is what they're trying to do.
May or may not be legitimate, you know, and which is still to be foreseen. You know what I'm saying?
And so to me, the political question here is that it's over for the Democrats. They have their questions, the senator questionings, right? So that might open up some things.
Depending on how the questions can be asked, there's some really good senators, at least as far as asking questions, you know, to elicit certain answers. I think that I think it also depends on, I don't know how it goes with like John Roberts telling people to answer questions, you know, like if he's going to ask the question and he's like, you didn't actually answer this question, why don't you, you know, try again? I don't know how that's going to work. So I'm really interested to see this because I have no idea. If he is just going to take whatever the answer is the first time around, then they are going to have a harder time getting shit done, because all those lawyers up there, especially Alan Dershowitz and shit, be really good at answering Democratic questions in a super particular way to not give them what they're asking for, but to still answer the question in a sufficient enough manner to say that he actually answered it. Mm-hmm. So,
because there is, politically speaking, there's absolutely no way that as it stands right now, this thing is going anywhere else but acquittal next week.
Yeah.
Unless through their opening arguments and whatever their answers are going to be during questioning, the best hope they have at this point is trying to convince Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and kind of the usual kind of waffling Republicans to cast enough doubt in their mind that they will consider a vote for additional witnesses.
Yeah.
Because all they need to do is get 4. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, they know they can't win on what they have. So they're trying to get at least 4 of those Republicans to just say, hey, I'm not going to vote acquittal at this point. I just want to know more. I just want to know more information.
Yeah.
And I think by bringing up the Hunter Biden stuff, maybe talking about Burisma just a little bit, talking about, because they've been opening up more and more towards the tail end there, kind of giving a little bit more reason to, maybe a little bit, they're muddying the waters a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that might be to just kind of try to convince a few people that, hey, I just want to know more. And because they have a chance to get through this thing if they can, because if they're going to call, if they can call witnesses, they're going to call John Bolton.
Yeah.
For sure. That's, in my mind, that's what they're going to do. They've been talking about that for a long time.
Hunter Biden's coming in. And if they vote to bring in witnesses, Hunter Biden is coming in.
And Hunter Biden is coming in. Ted
Maybe
Cruz has
Joe
confirmed
Biden.
that as of last night. He says, yeah, that's where we're at right now. That's what's going to happen. And then if I would imagine that it'll be just a single 1-for-1. It may not be. It kind of depends on how that whole situation goes. But
I wonder if they're able to get Mitch Mulvaney in there. Mick Mulvaney, whatever the fuck.
They can get anybody they want to go in there. And I'll tell you why.
The Democrats is what I mean. If they're going to be able to get the Republicans to okay Mulvaney,
yeah, and
that's going to be a fucking...
Yeah. I think the idea is a vote from those 4 senators to get more witnesses in kind of goes hand in hand with assuming that they will vote to just, okay, you guys want those ones in fairness? Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Tit for tat. We get 1-for-1. But there's a little known rule apparently in the Senate, and I don't know if this is just for impeachments or not, but this is that strange little statute Ted Cruz was talking about. You can be compelled by the Senate to testify, period,
Word.
Full stop.
Word.
And you have a couple of choices there. For somebody like a problematic witness like Hunter Biden, who would most certainly probably go in there and plead the fifth, they can offer him what's called transactional immunity. So they can say, okay, anything you have to come testify or you're going to go to jail.
But anything you did wrong.
Anything you say here that will incriminate you,
you're good to go.
You're good to go.
No pleading the fifth while you're here, though,
exactly.
Motherfucker.
That's the way they're thinking it will work out.
Let me ask you this.
Which would be fucking wild.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
So let me say 2 things. I got something to say and I got a question for you, right? And then we can move on. So I think that the 16 hours of questions is going to be really vital for the Democrats, right? Because the 16 hours of questions provides them an opportunity to do kind of what we were talking about, to answer a question and to say, we agree, or not even say we agree, but if they say, even if that is the case, that Hunter Biden did these things, and he can verify that if he comes in here, when we vote to do, when we hopefully vote to do witnesses.
Yeah.
Even if that is the case, and even if he does verify that, that does not, validate the way that the president went about this. And we need to investigate further why this action was taken instead of the proper route. And they have the opportunity to do that in this questioning and to not totally go back on what they said, to say, even if, right? I don't believe it, but even if that is the case, it doesn't,
And I'll tell you right now, there's no way that's ever going to happen.
No, but they have the opportunity,
and it's a golden opportunity to, if they really truly cared about essentially taking power back from the executive branch and kind of keeping a tighter rein on the executive branch, this is their opportunity to do it. And I will tell you right now, this is going to be a golden opportunity that will be lost and will be regretted in 50 to 60 years. It's, in my mind, I think that's what we'll look back, if you will, on the history books. And that'll be the one thing. It's like, well, why didn't they take this opportunity to rein him in? Because this is a blatant example of what can go wrong.
Yeah.
You get presidents that circumvent the entire infrastructure of how it's supposed to go about, like the DOJ and the State Department. No, I want my guys over there looking into some shit. I want my guys because I don't trust nobody else. It's like, what do we have this? You're completely dismantling the use of an entire multiple executive agencies because you just want to do it yourself.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, right? And this article that I just got a notification about is semi-relevant. This is just the headline of this article that I just pulled up. It says, quote unquote, get rid of her. Listen to President Trump order an ambassador fired while dining with key players in the Ukraine affair whom he's denied knowing.
Oh, did they find out?
So
they got I heard there was some audio.
So what I was going to ask you, right, is what is the possibility? Do you remember when all this shit with James Comey is going down?
Word.
Right? And
Michael Flynn era.
And the president is like, Comey better watch out because there might be tapes of our discussion. You never know. Right? Mm-hmm. This is totally just a question. It's not, this is relevant because maybe there is, but do you think that it's possible that the president is dumb enough, and I'm going to say it, dumb enough to be secretly recording conversations in his office that he's keeping like for his own private record that could one day be called into evidence just like the fucking Nixon tapes were? Because you'd have to be a fucking idiot to be secretly recording nefarious conversations you're having with your cabinet and your staff. Mm-hmm. You have to be an idiot. Yeah, when we live in a world where we've already had a president have to leave office because he did that.
I think we should just go ahead and get an Alexa in the Oval Office and just keep it there. And then we could just ask Amazon to send us whatever they're saying. I would like to think not. He has proven himself savvy enough in that kind of, I don't want to say subterfuge, but like the way he goes about, things with his lawyers, and some of his lawyers, obviously through Michael Cohen, we apparently have tapes or recordings or things, which apparently hasn't gone anywhere, or they're sitting down in the Southern District of New York court still. But I just don't, he doesn't strike me as that incautious a person when it comes to walking the line. And, we've seen it from the way he, he's perceived to give his orders through like roundabout requests.
Yeah.
Time and time again. And he can always have his ability to say, well, I didn't say that. I said it would be nice. But I wasn't saying
this,
that.
Right? I'll just read some of this New York Times article that is here, right? For an hour one evening in 2018, President Trump sat around a table in a private room in his Washington hotel with a group of donors, including two men at the center of the impeachment inquiry talking about golf, trade, politics, and removing the United States ambassador to the Ukraine. The conversation, captured on a recording made public Saturday, contradicted Mr. Trump's repeated statements that he does not know the two men, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, who went on to work with President's personal lawyer Rudy Giuliani to carry out a pressure campaign in Ukraine. The hour-long recording, a video shot on Mr. Fruman's phone during the dinner in April 2018, confirmed Mr. Parnas' account of having raised with Mr. Trump criticisms of the ambassador to Kiev at the time, Marie L. Yovanovitch, and the president's immediate order that Ms. Yovanovitch should be removed from the post. Get rid of her, Mr. Trump can be heard responding. The recording was made public by Mr. Parnas's lawyer, Joseph A. Bondi, hours after the president's lawyer began presenting their defense in the impeachment trial, and as Democrats looked for leverage to persuade Republicans to support their calls to expand the inquiry by calling new witnesses. So we've talked about this in the past, right? That the president, it was 100% in his right to get rid of, to fire whoever he wants.
All he had to do was say, to sign a thing and said, well, you're fired.
But to fucking...
To have your
asking weird Rudy Giuliani cronies to look up information and find things out about her so that you can get rid of her is fucking weird. Just fire the bitch. You can do what you want. You can do what you want. And that's what you argued after you did it anyway. Is it doesn't matter because I could do what I want. Mm-hmm. So who even cares? But now to fucking lie about it, I've never met them before. I've got no idea. I don't know. Now you're telling them what to do. You're on video now, apparently, telling them what to do. You can't solidly argue that they're not under your employ, or at least under your command. You can't make that argument now. This is initial reaction, just so everyone knows, obviously, that it came up as we're sitting here. So I read you the first 3 paragraphs of this article. That's where we're at, right? But if that's the case, you can no longer say that these men were not under some form of your control, command, direction, whatever word you want to use. I'm not trying to use a more extreme word to make it sound like whatever. But if you're telling them what to do, that takes away. It also removes this layer from between Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman and the president that the Republicans were arguing before, is that, even if Lev Parnas does come in, it's just more hearsay because he's only going to be able to tell us what he was told from Rudy Giuliani, who was supposedly told that by the president. But if now you have a recording of those 2 men at a dinner with the president, he's telling them what to do, Lev Parnas now and Igor Fruman now have first-hand accounting of a conversation they had with the president in which he directed them what to do. So you could then argue that he may or may not have first-hand accounting of the other conversations that he's saying that he had, and that it's not just hearsay from Rudy Giuliani. You know?
I mean, if this is a track record, how many other dinners did you have where somebody was recording a tape? Maybe. These guys, do they have any more tapes?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The timing is interesting.
Hour-long video, huh?
Oh, well, we ain't playing that on this show.
Yeah.
All right, we'll just set up the tape. We'll wrap up. We'll be out of here. Well, that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
First reported by ABC News on Friday.
Okay, so let's break this down a second. He's at a dinner with these Giuliani surrogate cronies, and he is telling them to get rid of her. Again, that calls into question, well, why don't you just get rid of her? But other than that, just because he is refusing to fire the ambassador himself doesn't mean that, they're not going to fire her still. Trying to think, it's like, why would you not just fire her and have your cronies do it for you?
Yeah.
That kind of gets suspect. It doesn't necessarily mean anything nefarious because it's still, if he doesn't want to do it himself, he could tell people that work for him to do it because he's still going about it in a roundabout way, but he's still firing her. It's still his prerogative to do. But I'd be curious to hear that. I'm going to have to listen to that tape there later.
So, yeah, this is from Mr. Lev Parnas. The biggest problem there, I think, where you need to start is we got to get rid of the ambassador. He said she's basically walking around telling everybody, wait, he's going to get impeached. Just wait. Mr. Trump asked for the ambassador's name. Mr. Parnas said, I don't remember. Mr. Trump then said, get rid of her. Get her out tomorrow. I don't care. Get her out tomorrow. Take her out. Okay? Do it. So that also
you always have to say the same thing 5 different times.
So that also points to where that the reports came from of, her telling everybody, oh, he's going to get impeached. Just wait, which she said under
oath
that she didn't say.
Yeah.
So if there's other people, I feel that now if these 2 men come in, Lev Parnas will then also be asked about people where he heard that Marie Yovanovitch was saying that shit so that they can try and corroborate that. And if they can corroborate that, that bitch is going to jail. She's going to fucking jail.
You can't lie under oath like that.
Fuck no. And if you said some shit, just say you said it. You're like, listen, I thought that he was. And obviously we're here right now with the impeachment trial. So what's good? But,
so technically,
but you shouldn't be saying that shit. Yeah. And you definitely can't lie under oath. And man, if they're able to point out that she's lying under oath, that blows up that whole shit. Half those witnesses that came in are going to be done for. You know, anyone they can even poke any type of hole in, because the Republicans are going to start arguing. Oh, you got one person who's lying under oath. They're fucking all lying under oath. You know, they're all part of some fucking deep state scheme that
just when things were starting to get boring, right?
Yeah.
God, it never stops. Well, that might, and it's, how is that going to come into play? Is it going to come into play? You know, I would imagine you'll start having outcries from the House, because the Senate can't necessarily talk about that right now because it's not part of the impeachment, but it kind of is.
That is
abuse of power.
Good.
Is that evidence to more abuse of power, or
I don't know, man.
Like, I don't know if it speaks to anything necessarily. Yeah. Interesting. Jeez. So that was from New York Times, huh?
Yep. Originally reported by ABC. That's some shit. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
That's very strange.
What you would classify that under? You know, inappropriate, but that's not.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would call that formally.
Yeah. I mean, somebody that would argue like, well, you said you didn't know her, or you didn't know them. It's like, well, have you met Stormy Daniels? Because that was the thing too, where he insisted he had no idea, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, yeah, I paid her, whatever. So I don't know. We'll see. There's just add more onto the pile. Never gets old.
That's crazy.
And just think, we keep going the way we're going, we'll have 4 more years of this shit.
Yeah.
But that's a topic for another day.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so
listener request time.
Yeah, let's do the listener request topics. So let's see here. Do you want to start with the car tabs or the smoking?
Let's do smoking real quick.
Okay, let's get some.
You want some beer chachos?
Yeah, some space bloods.
Oh, word.
Some space bloods.
Some space bloods. All right.
Camera people.
So maybe well, you can hear me anyways. Oh, it opens. Oh, it does open in. Oh, we can't. Fuck, we didn't think this one through. Want to take a quick break?
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back after we grab some beer chachos.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan, because that's what's that?
And we're back with some Space Blood, our favorite. Cheers to the Space Blood, my friend. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have to figure out... We're going to need a beer fridge in here. Quick, fast, in a hurry. Okay. So we're going to talk about a listener request. This was the federal level raising the legal smoking age to 21. And this happened, I don't know, a couple months or right after Washington State actually... passed a very similar law that did the same thing.
We passed ours in November, and then it wasn't passed. It was just made effective in January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and this was, I know we talked about it at the time, the Washington State level 1, and some of our general opinions on it. But overall, now this is on the federal level,
and the federal one was put in. It was snuck in with the last budget that was passed, which was around Christmas time.
Yeah, remember when Trump said he's not going to sign any more omnibus deals? Well, I'm really surprised that Mitch McConnell let that one go through. I wonder what he got in return for giving that up. I don't know.
I have no idea.
But I can only imagine. In a giant omnibus budget bill, God knows.
Yeah.
So, your thoughts on the legal smoking age now being 21.
So I'm ashamed to say initially I just didn't give a shit, right? I didn't give a shit because I'm 25.
We're past
because I
that,
don't
right?
care anymore. Yeah, it doesn't affect me. I don't smoke cigarettes, so I don't. This is all opinion right here, because this is just my initial reaction.
Yeah.
I also personally think that smoking cigarettes is bad for you. So the harder it is for kids to do it, the better. But I don't think that it's really up to anybody to tell an individual what they should and shouldn't do or what they can and can't do, especially if you're supposed to be an adult when you're 18,
Thank you. Yeah.
I think that that's really weird, that something arbitrary, because it's not like smoking cigarettes like lowers your inhibitions or anything like that. It doesn't like fuck you up. You don't get high from it other than, like the head high or whatever. But
when you first do
right,
go
but
without,
as far as like actual highness, like you don't really get high from it.
No.
So
you get a 5 to 10 minute nicotine buzz.
Right.
And
So
that's if you're going without for a while.
Well, and the alcohol thing is like super arbitrary. 21, I know that's like a weird age to decide that when you're 21, then you're old enough to know how to handle your alcohol. I'm not really sure how that itself
it's really
came about.
Strange how it coincides with the ability to rent a car for the first time.
Well, and in some states it doesn't. Like here, you have to be like 23 or 26. I think. Like there's a bunch of states where you have to be over 21. Yeah, it's not, because when we went to Michigan, I was 21, but we still weren't old enough to. Or maybe in Michigan we were, but in Washington you're not. Like you'd be like 26 here, I think.
Oh
yeah.
I remember when I was that age, you had to be 21 to legally rent a car, but your rates at that time were 3 times as much as it would have been if you were 25.
So maybe that's what it is. Yeah, because it's also your car insurance goes down when you're 26. I know that seems really weird, but there's a whole bunch of things that like being 18 doesn't matter anymore, So I don't
get it.
I think that it's weird, I think that it's really weird, especially because I feel that if as a kid who smoked and did all kinds of drugs, right? Kids are going to do what they want to do. Like they're going to figure out, a way to do it if they want to do it, I used to stand outside of gas stations for hours at a time asking dozens and dozens of people to buy me a pack of cigarettes.
Was Clerks out back then?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, for hours we would stand out there and just ask people that looked like they might be willing to buy us a pack of cigarettes, and you would have to ask probably 100 people before someone finally would, and a bunch of them would be like, that's fucking illegal. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go to jail for buying you cigarettes.
You're trying to find a grown-up version of the kid that was standing outside.
But exactly,
4 years
exactly. And eventually you would, and they would be like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And they would buy you a pack of cigarettes, and you'd move on with your day. And when you got a little bit older, you found places that may or may not ID you when you went there, and those are the places that you bought liquor from and you bought cigarettes from. They're gonna find a way. If they want to find a way.
And see, I don't know if I could say this just from my life experience or if it's just kind of the way it is.
I promise you it's true.
But between the ages of 13 to 21, you're finding ways to get alcohol. Always. And I don't see why that would change it wouldn't be any different for smokes if you're trying to get smokes.
Right.
I mean, kids are going to do that. No matter what. And when we passed our state law, I think we talked about part of the reasoning being the fact they're trying to protect children from vaping and younger ages and all this garbage.
They were referencing studies that, X amount of people or most people started smoking before they were 21. And so if we can make people wait until after they're 21 to smoke, then they probably won't want to smoke anyway.
Yeah.
Or
we're just going to make it harder at least.
Right.
Which is going to at least give us a net positive in the numbers, I guess.
And most of the people, at least in this state, are still more concerned about vaping than smoking because teens are smoking cigarettes less, but they're vaping more.
Yep.
And the vaping ban that went into effect federally, I guess, leaves like tankless shit juices and stuff is like still good to go. But it's the pods, the jewels and stuff, the pre-made ones that
yeah.
you're not supposed to buy or that you're not allowed to buy anymore, other than like the mint or whatever and the regular ones. But as far as like flavored juice and stuff, you can still buy on the internet as long as you're 21, you know?
I had a copy of, let me pull this up real quick. The actual page from the FDA about their comment on it. Because the FDA is the one that sets those laws, the Food Drug Administration.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's just like guidelines to stores or something like that. They have a little caveat that is now loading. If my internet will be faster. Oh, I got like 4 things opening at once. But yeah, essentially I want to say that there's language in there about vaping products because it's that all-encompassing tobacco product, which vaping products, they count as a tobacco product because there's nicotine in them, apparently. So on December 20th, they say, December 20th, 2019, the president signed legislation to amend the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act and raise the minimum federal age of sale of tobacco products from 18 to 21 years. It is now illegal for a retailer to sell any tobacco product, including cigarettes, cigars, and e-cigarettes, to anyone under 21. Yeah. FDA will provide additional details on the issue, blah, 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 later on. So yeah, federally, you got to be 21 to use any tobacco product.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of a tired thing to hear, but I'm never going to get over it because it is the absolute truth. We have set the arbitrary date of your 18th birthday as the date we decide that you are a legal adult. You can be found guilty of federal crimes. Mm-hmm. You can be sent to federal prison.
And do life in prison, yeah.
Yes, you can join the military and go die for your country. But you cannot, because the government says you cannot, because it's bad for you. You cannot have a cigarette. You cannot have a cigar. You can't come home on leave, have a glass of scotch, and smoke a cigar with your dad in the hot tub.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That is not allowed because you're not old enough.
Yeah.
Try to justify that to me, please. Nobody can because there is no objective reason to pass a law like this. If you look at the numbers, I guarantee you, if you had actual solid numbers, which are going to be impossible to get, but we know it wasn't that long ago. 13 years old, not hard to get cigarettes, not hard to start smoking, not hard to start drinking. And it continues to this day.
I was 15 when I started smoking cigarettes, probably 15 or 16, you know, and
Who's that, your phone?
That's you. It's not me. Oh, it's something. Something was dancing. Is it that?
I don't know. That'd be a weird thing for a Groupon notification on the iPad, but
that was weird.
That is so weird. Anyways.
Yeah. So I started smoking cigarettes when I was 15, you know, and I got cigarettes
easy
until I was fucking 20, you know, and I quit smoking. So only 2 of those years was I legally able to buy cigarettes. And I still got cigarettes the other 3 years. I smoked weed that whole time. I bought alcohol that whole time. You know, I drank that whole time. I did all kinds of other stuff. I don't see how this is gonna
I do
stop that. But I agree. It is and is not tired. You know, the talking point or the point that you raised.
It's tired, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not true, you know?
Right. And that there's no type of exemption or anything, you know, wrapped up in this for like military personnel or like anything like that. You know, I don't remember if it was a private conversation we had or if it was on the show, but I've always felt, as long as I've had an opinion about it, you know, if you're going to be 18 years old and you're going to enlist in the military, there should at least be a bar on base that you can go to, you know, that you can go to if you're not going to drive or like you live on the barracks or something and they know that you're going to be fucking fine. Why the fuck should there not be a place that you can go and drink when you volunteered to possibly give your life for the country, you know, but you're not allowed to fucking have a drink, but you can do this? You know, that seems really weird. I can also understand how that like doesn't wash for people who think it shouldn't be 21 for anything, you know, that it doesn't, if that's the case, if the people who are in the military are old enough, you know, at 18 to have a drink, then why isn't a regular person who just chooses not to join the military old enough when they're 18? Which I don't fucking know, man. I have no idea. You know, like I said, it's an arbitrary age to decide that. I don't know how that came about. There's just probably some type of research, but
you know, and the more libertarian argument of the fact that the government is telling you that there's products that you can consume
because it's bad,
but
for
just
you.
Not yet.
Yeah,
not right now,
and it's bad for you.
Yeah,
you know, you're not old enough to decide whether or not it's really healthy for you.
And when you do go buy it, we're going to charge you a shit ton of money for the luxury of being able to buy something.
There's like $10 here. It's like $10. That's super expensive. $10 is a lot of money.
Don't go to New York City, bro.
How much is it in New York City?
I mean, last time I looked, it was like $15.
You are fucking kidding me.
No.
That is absurd.
Oh, yeah.
I thought $10 was absurd.
Well, fuck, now it's illegal to, I want to say it's illegal to vape in the city limits.
Really?
I want to say. I'll have to, you know, don't fucking check
pack of cigarettes in the South, you can get for like $5. Bro.
Oh, yeah. Or in Alaska.
What is up with that?
Alaska was a dope place, too. But that was something, I don't know if we talked about before, but like for a long time, the military had the standard of whatever the state laws were, wherever you were stationed, like you had to do that. Like you have to quit smoking if you're 18 years old and get stationed in Alaska because their legal smoking age was 19. For whatever reason. And again, I don't know how you can justify a law like that other than to say that it's bad for you. In which case you can't justify that because alcohol is fucking bad for you. So is, I mean, shit, half the food the FDA approves is bad for you. What are we actually talking about here? You just don't like this industry because I don't know, for whatever reason.
Well, there's a lot of people, especially in this state and other states where there was vape bans already, that feel like it's showing preference to big tobacco, right? Because a lot of these vape companies and the vaping stores, you know, are going to lose what small business they had left or a section of the small business they had left because now all these people who between the age of 18 and 20 can't come into their store and buy shit, you know? It's now just the people that are 21 and up. And so they already had their revenue cut at least in half in most of these cases in the vape stores when they couldn't sell juice anymore, you know?
I'm sure like probably more like 90%.
Right. And so all they could do is sell pieces and coils and tobacco flavored juice, you know? And now a section of their clientele is being cut out. I know there was a whole slew of businesses that closed after that happened here.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't imagine, you know, and so there's a bunch of people arguing that it's showing more preference to big tobacco, that they don't even want people to quit smoking, you know, because they're just going to make it harder to get. And, you know, it's weird.
And I don't know what I'd have to look and see maybe some of the legal battles on the state level or something, but like I could imagine an industry forming together, like the vape industry, forming together, trying to get enough money to get some lawyer support and sue the state over essentially lost wages because they decided to outlaw their industry overnight. But I don't know if that would wash because it's a vote of the people type of thing or if it was just a legislature thing. I kind of not remembering. It was a legislature.
At least in Washington state, as far as the vape ban, right, was a 120-day temporary ban that ends in early February.
That's right.
But Jay Inslee said that he intends to try and make it permanent, you know, which I believe would have to be a bill that's passed because this was just like an emergency power thing that he did.
Yeah.
So if it's going to be something that happens forever, but I don't know that he has to do that anymore because it's already done federally, you know?
Well, I guess if you want to outlaw vaping, that's still eliminated
the juices and stuff. Right.
You've eliminated your target market, which you actually haven't because unless you make it illegal to import from the internet,
because you can still buy it online,
Yes.
and so you would have to make it. And I don't know. You
can refill them little jewel pods too.
Yeah,
so you can get your own juice and still be rolling around with your little jewel pod.
Yeah. And you could, I mean, since it's been banned here, you can still buy it and have it shipped here, you know? Yeah. So I guess I don't know. And you can still, like, people are, like, making their own, you know? They're just buying the components. Like, it's super easy, you know?
Yeah, I worked with a guy who used to do that.
Yeah, and
because he used to just vape unflavored stuff.
Gross.
Because he was doing it to get off cigarettes.
Yeah.
And he didn't want it to be that pleasant. So he didn't want to have, like, a nice, you know, green apple or some fucking tasty dessert. Because he wanted to get away from it. So he just vaped nothing.
I used to quit, and I still wanted something that tasted good. That's gross.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and like the ingredients to make it, they're like food products. You know, they're not
vegetable glycol,
right?
Nicotine salts, and that's about it.
Yeah,
you know,
it's weird. Yeah,
you can add some. What was the other one? Polypropylene glycol or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the old VG PG.
Yes.
So you know, the VG is what gave you your big clouds, and the EG is what brought the flavoring across, or something like that.
I remember that.
There's some fucked up science
when people first started doing the mods and shit. Yeah.
What do you want? 40-60s? What do you want there, bro?
Oh man.
Dudes,
I fucking
all the dudes had gauged ears.
Yeah.
They all had piercings, and it was a really weird... I hated going into vape shops towards the end of my vaping career, because it was like, dude, what are you...
So douchey.
Why is it such a douchey industry, man? Like, I get it, but why you gotta douche it up, man? Come on.
Because it's kids, and that's why, and that's what they're fucking going after, you know? And that's why they're trying to...
But that's the thing. Cool. They're not legally kids, though, are they?
Competitive vaping competitions, you know?
It's the fucking coddling of the American mind.
There's no 40-year-olds competing in the competitive vaping competitions.
Well, there's a few, but, you know.
No.
Those are the 40-year-olds that date 20-year-olds.
Those are all youngins, bro. The ones competing in the competition are younger than me, bro. They have to be.
I used to know some real big, hardcore, burly motherfuckers that were big-time vapors. The dudes that would work at the shipyard or something like that would hang their giant mod off of a necklace.
Yeah.
You know you got a member of your family that was into that for a while. I don't know if he still is.
John's still into that shit.
I mean, and them motherfuckers, they're big fucking, they're not
Red's
little,
on it. Yeah.
You know, they're not little fucking hyphy boys.
He don't work in the shipyard, but he does. He has that mod thing on a lanyard on his neck.
He's a legit fucking dude that likes to vape like that. And
he be vaping. That's for sure.
He ain't competing in no fucking cloud competitions, but, you know, he's the type of person that you walk into that, you know, he orders probably just online because he wouldn't have gone in there and deal with all the little douche nozzles.
Yeah, I don't want to air him out, but he does whatever he does.
Yeah. You know. Yeah. He seemed like a cool dude. But
John's a really cool guy.
Like
he helped me do a lot of shit in Dax's room, actually, because he does electrical stuff, you know.
That's very handy.
Yeah. And so I don't like to fuck with electricity. Nope. It makes me super nervous.
Super happy. My brother is an electrician.
Yeah. So John helped me do all the electricity in Dax's room and helped me get like the wall started, and then I finished all the walls and all the shit by myself. Mm-hmm. It's a good ass fucking room I built in there. I don't know if you've been in there, but it's solid.
Dude, I don't know. I haven't been to your house in a while.
It's quality room that I constructed. Yeah. I'm a huge fan.
I saw some videos of it.
Yeah,
the workmanship was quite cool, and that fucking door that you built,
bro.
So badass.
The door, you know what I'm saying?
It's such a dope door.
Yeah.
So to tie it all up, there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, if there's lawsuits in place, they're already
pessimistic
in.
about it, but
you know,
now that it's federalized,
it's fucking shameful. But it's the world we live in now. It's this coddling of the American mind and body.
Certainly, from the libertarian section of my mind, you know, I don't really. Is it not up to me to decide what I do with myself?
Yeah, you can lock me up and throw me in a cage for the rest of my life, but I can't
smoke fucking tobacco. Yeah,
fuck you.
I don't even think that
I can go get blown up and mangled by a roadside bomb. Maybe not even killed, but I can lose my legs and have everything in my life fucked up and have PTSD forever. But I can't come home and have a beer.
I truly feel at the very least there should be an exemption for military personnel. Yeah. You know, at the very fucking least there should be, because and not by anyone's fault or that they shouldn't, but if you get fucking deployed to the desert, is anyone going to really say like, you can't smoke cigarettes because you're 18 years old.
Mhm.
Fuck that, bro. If you're deployed in a combat zone, I would
Your ass is
pray
smoking
to
cigarettes.
God that your commanding officer is like, do what you want. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna enforce some fucking, smoking law while you're walking around with a fucking M4 in your hand. You know, I'm not gonna do that to you. Like, that's what I want, you know, if the defense spending comes from my taxes, that's what I want you to do with it, is to allow people who are 18, 19, and 20 to fucking smoke cigarettes while they're in a combat zone.
Yeah. I want bases in combat zones to be fully stocked with cartons of fucking Marlboro.
Yeah, I
so
just
that
don't.
if they want them, they got them.
Right. Like I said, I don't agree with it at all, but I feel if that's what's to be done, you know, let the kids smoke,
Let the kids smoke.
Let them.
So it said.
That should be another t-shirt, probably. Let the kids
so
smoke.
Don saith, so it shall be.
Let the kids smoke. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let the
I like
kids
that.
smoke in quotes, and then put like the Dawn 314. There's a little blasphemy for you.
That's a good one. I like that one. Let the kids smoke.
Yeah. So that one's coming at you, Jay Hines. You know who you are. Now the big one. I went down so many rabbit holes on this one because it
Car
got
tax.
real interesting.
Yeah.
So this was the initiative that we passed last November in the state of Washington, right? It was an initiative pushed forth by the illustrious Tim Eyman, who is now being prosecuted for the theft of a $70 chair from Office Depot or some shit like that.
Is that still the thing, or is that a different?
That's a different thing, I think. I
Oh.
think that thing's long since
Right now,
passed.
he's being sued for campaign finance, but I was
Yeah.
unable to understand exactly what the deal was with that. So
It was, I saw the video, dude. It was weird. He's like rolling around, kind of like
I
trying to get
saw
people
the
to get
video.
signatures.
Yeah.
He just rolls out with the chair. It's like, what are you
Why are you
doing,
doing
dude?
that?
Did you
Yeah.
think you bought that?
Okay,
Did you buy the chair?
Yeah, so it was an initiative that we voted on last November, Initiative 976.
Yes.
And it was to reduce car tab fees to $30 because I think it's like $85, at least in Kitsap County, right? It's
very, you don't know. You're just going to go in. It's about 85, 86 bucks.
It used to be even more because
Yes.
it was very dependent on how much money your car was worth.
According to, well, we'll get into that. So let's lay it out.
I remember like if you had a new car, you could pay over $200
Easy.
for your tabs. Yeah. And I don't think it's quite so much now. It used to be more expensive, but
Yes. And there's a reason why it was that way, because of the way the system worked out. So the actual text,
system.
and I think this is important to talk about because of something we'll get into later. The actual text in the bill said that this measure would repeal, reduce, or remove authority to impose certain vehicle taxes and fees, limit annual motor vehicle license fees to $30, except voter-approved charges, and base vehicle taxes on Kelley Blue Book value. Should this measure be enacted into law? Yes or no? We voted for it 52.99% to 47.01% with 100% precincts reporting. So that passed. And then immediately the governor and Bob Ferguson decided to put out a statement saying that they essentially will try to comply as best as possible, telling a lot of the Department of Transportation aspects. So our Department of Transportation in the state is called Sound Transit.
right.
Right. And this is
In
actually
this county.
in this
county
area,
Yeah.
region.
So they have a district.
Yeah, it's
Right.
the Central Puget Sound Regulatory Transit Authority.
Yeah.
And that's very important because Sound Transit sounds like a private company.
Right.
It is not. This is
It's a government entity.
Yes, this is a government agency
Yeah.
that we're talking about here, which is funded primarily
Right.
through the gas or the car tab
Taxes
license
on
fees
car
and
tabs,
all
yeah.
this. And there's so many.
It's like $30-some their particular
Yes.
fee, right?
because that actually hasn't changed, but it's all
Right.
the extra shit that gets added
Yeah, it's
to
like $32 or $38. It's a strange amount of money.
Yeah,
I
there's
think.
like a $2 fee for Clean Air Act, a $2.5 fee for this and that and the other thing. There's all these different things that go into making
and
it
that's
up.
supposed to go to the roads. And in Washington State, we have a lot of ferries. There's a lot of people, a surprising amount of people that don't know what the fuck a ferry is. So a ferry boat, right? Do you know what I'm saying? You go places or people come here and they're like, I want to go on the ferry. And you're like, fucking why? Yeah, I know, fucking why? Anyway, so something we take for granted here is,
It's like
is the
when
ferry
people
system.
go to
But
like New York and want to drive
Staten
over
Island ferry.
the Staten Island ferry, or they want to drive over the Verrazano Bridge. You're like, why would you, in God's name, would you want to do that?
Yeah.
I used to have to drive across that thing all the time. It's terrible.
So
$20 a pop.
Fuck that.
Just saying.
So we have a ferry system here, the ferry boats, that you can, there's several routes all over the sound that you can go to different places. And, so it goes to the ferries, the roads, there's all kinds of different, construction projects, upkeep. Yeah. All that stuff. A light rail, it has to do with the light rail and shit and all that.
And so with the passing of this bill, there was some authority left to Sound Transit because they have special taxable regions that they have. And so you'll be in different areas. You'll get taxed a certain thing because they can't touch that money.
Right.
Right. It's really weird the way all this money is allocated and reserved for certain things. And so it's like a 1.5% tax here, a 2.25% tax somewhere else, and just in the various areas. So that's going to remain no matter what happens. But the real impact we're talking about here, but what happens by reducing all of that revenue essentially overnight is going to completely implode the entire transportation agency in the state because they will run out of money. And this includes things like the State Patrol are partially funded by they are funded by a portion of that coming out of the Transit Authority. And so they're looking at a $4.2 billion loss over the next 6 years, approximately $700 million a year. Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's like 10% or something like that of their budget, right?
It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, for the governor to come out and to announce to all agencies that they must essentially hold back any spending to absolute necessities, that tells you that, hey, and he put out a statement, said, we're going to try to see what we can do and figure out how to do this. Until then, everybody just do the very minimum you can. Y'all are going to get paid. So
11% of Sound Transit's roughly $2 billion yearly income. That's what it is.
Dog.
And the city car, it's revoking the city car tab fees, such as the $80 in Seattle for added bus service and road work. Mm-hmm. And so it obviously should be noted, if you live in Seattle, you may or may not own a car, but if you do own a car, you're getting fucked every year when you have to renew your tabs.
Yes.
Probably for $200,
Because you are paying a tax on the privilege to drive and own a car, I should say.
And drive it on the roads.
Yes. Which is very common in very liberal cities who are pushing to get vehicles out of the city. Which Seattle is one of the worst traffic cities in the entire
it's fucking
country.
Horrible, right? Oh, it's so horrible.
Bad. So bad. And so it's obviously something they want to push for because Seattle's not built to be a driver city. It is really not. Anyways, this is all happening. And as of right now, it is tied up in a legal battle. Immediately they decided to the amalgamation. Or no, it's not the amalgamation. That was the old one. Sorry.
The amalgamation.
Yeah. So
let's hear it. What's it called?
The Washington State Attorney General's office is asking the Supreme Court at this point to essentially let the car tab cuts take effect. Because
they're having to defend it.
Yes, because we pass it as a vote of the people.
Right.
And so the state has a duty, the Attorney General has to defend the decision, and he is not a big fan of stuff like this. So
no, there's a series of states or cities and counties that are the ones that are suing this. It's like a coalition of all of these different cities and counties that are trying to overturn this because they're also, then they're going to have to put up the money for all these construction projects that are going to have to cut without this money from the car tabs.
So in the initial legal battle, a judge has blocked the measure temporarily from going forth
until this gets sorted out,
and they're gonna figure it out because literally, I mean, as fucked up as it sounds, like you can't cripple the entire transportation industry overnight.
Well, so
you can,
right,
and you probably should because you shouldn't have been fucking around with people's money anyways.
But one of the weird things I found out about it, right, is that even if it does go into effect and the car tab fees get cut to $30, there is still...
And that's just the license fee.
Right, just the license fee, right, gets cut to $30.
Yeah.
There is still money that Sound Transit will be able to collect as far as fees go.
Oh yeah.
Because they have they sold a shitload of bonds. They sold millions of dollars worth of bonds, and they also took out a couple $1 billion credit line with the federal government. And so they've borrowed all of this money, and all of these card tab fees that they're charging are just getting paid right to the federal government.
Yeah.
And so the money's already spent anyway, and it's already just being repaid to the federal government. So the federal government will be damned if they're going to allow some fucking state to not pay their bill so that we can't pay our bill, which we don't ever do anyway. But that's, how all this money is already paid to the feds anyway, you know, which I think is super fucking weird. And so, we've passed this an initiative, which on one hand, I'm like, well, fucking ain't right. We decided as the people, this is America, and we decided this is what we're going to do. But now you're saying that there's some weird bureaucracy in the background that is inhibiting us from actually doing this because you've sold parts of your company to people in the form of bonds and also borrowed money from the government. What the fuck?
Somebody's trying to make a too big to fail argument, essentially.
Yeah.
The same kind of way. This has got to be around. We got to get the bailout. It's been running all fucked up and wrong for the last few decades, but we got to keep it running.
There was one person. It is Senate Transportation Committee Chairman Steve Hobbs, Democrat from Lake Stevens, right? He got asked about, what's going to be done about this whole deal. And he said, my intention is to do the cut regardless of what happens because you don't know what's going to happen. I'd rather just get ahead of the game on this one. Our job, is to balance the budget, and that's what we're going to try and do. And I feel like that's personally, as the way that I look at the government, I feel like that's the right way to do it.
Hey.
The people told you how this is going to work out. So do your fucking job. Figure out how to balance the budget with the amount of money that we're going to give you, because we decided we're not fucking doing that anymore. And that's how America started, is fucking taxes, bitch. So
and if you can't figure it out, we'll find someone that will.
Yep, exactly. We will quickly replace you, and you are aware of that. Yep. So I appreciate that this man is aware of what his job is, or at least what his position is in the state, that he knows that he is a servant of the people.
He does not work for Governor Inslee.
No.
He works for... he might technically, but Governor Inslee works for the fucking people of the state.
Yeah, and the people have just told you that we're not going to pay this money anymore. Yep. So I appreciate that, especially from a Democrat from Lake Stevens, right? That's listen, this is what we got to do.
Chris Pratt came out of Lake Stevens, and he's running the farm now.
I think that one of my favorite... Oh, goddamn.
You got this.
It all just fell right out.
Melted away. Well, a little history I wanted to add to this bill, because it is shaping up to have very similar consequences.
Yeah.
So again, in 1999, Mr. Tim Eyman got an initiative, essentially the same initiative passed.
Right.
And it was voted by the will of the people. I actually got the numbers up here too. I wanted to show you 56 to 43%, essentially. But unfortunately, it was just like this one. It was thrown into litigation, and it was sent to the Washington Supreme Court, in which the Amalgamated Transportation Union Local 587 versus the state of Washington were able to successfully defeat the bill on essentially wording problems in the bill.
Yes.
And they had called out some very interesting clauses that were stated in there, and that there was essentially money that it did not speak to, that it affected, and all this stuff. And it is 1.5 billion pages that ultimately did rule on the side of the union who wanted it pulled. And it was ultimately pulled. And so they lost the court battle after the vote of the will of the people was passed already.
Yeah.
And so we're now wondering what's going to happen in litigation. Is this going to be another essentially kind of fucking loophole win for the courts in the state? Or I don't want to call it the state, because technically the state is us, but whoever's suing the bill or suing for the bill right now.
The state or the cities and counties.
Yeah. And then the state attorney general office is having to try to defend this thing. And
Tim Eyman doesn't feel confident in the way that the attorney general is defending the initiative. He doesn't think that he's trying hard enough.
no,
And also, Sound Transit has argued that they should be able to continue to collect their fees because in the district in which they operate, the initiative was voted down.
yeah,
And so they think that because the people in the district in which they operate in,
it should be fine.
yeah,
Should be fine,
which I
right?
think
We
is
can just keep doing our
super
thing.
funny.
So
Like,
that's
you guys are assholes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's kind of where it stands right now. We're in litigation, and unfortunately, I do not have a warm fuzzy about it passing.
Yeah.
So if you are one of those people that's waiting on renewing your car tab, expecting to pay like $45, I wouldn't count on it. You know,
The lowest, I think that this says the lowest that someone could pay is like 42 and some change or something like that.
Mhm.
It's like 42.75 or some shit.
Yeah. And originally, I discovered that originally it was, his original argument for trying to pass this initiative was the way they determined a car's value.
43.25.
43.25. The way they determined a car's value was essentially based on, it wasn't MSRP, but it was something similar to like a retail value based off of a depreciation scale that was provided by the car manufacturers. Which is why the minute you drive a car off the lot, it's worth 40% of what you bought it for.
Right.
And so people are going, well, that's fucked up. That's wrong. You got insider trading going on in here, essentially promoting not only their car industry, but also funneling more money out of the taxpayer's pocket and into the government purse so that the car industry can walk away from it. That's Tim Eyman's original kind of angle for bringing that initiative forth.
And locally, just for people who don't live in Washington State, because we have a lot of people who live a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Tim Eyman is well known locally. And he is well known as an anti-tax activist, is how he's described in like every article you ever read about him, as an anti-tax activist.
He's running for governor in 2020, by the way.
And fucking good, dude.
As an independent.
And he has advocated that people don't pay that they don't renew their tabs. That's what he says, is that people should not renew their tabs. I wish that I could. I'm going to find this quote because it's really funny. He said, like, you should, if you get pulled over, you should tell the cops, like, absolutely, I did not renew my tabs. This is our Boston Tea Party.
This is our fucking sovereign citizen moment.
Yeah, this is our Boston Tea Party.
Jesus.
Yeah, if you do get pulled over, Eyman said after the court hearing Tuesday, you say, absolutely, I didn't renew my tabs. This is our Boston Tea Party, man. And
yeah, that's a good idea.
Then it says, this is a Seattle Times article entitled Tim Eyman's Car Tab Measure on Hold, Judge Orders. And then it says, driving with expired tabs carries a penalty of $139 to $231, depending on how long they've been expired, said Washington State Patrol spokesman Sergeant Darren Wright. Law enforcement officers can issue warnings, but it's up to their discretion, Wright said. Department of Licensing spokeswoman Christine Anthony said the department has received some calls from drivers about refusing to renew their tabs. Quote, we advise people to comply with the law and pay the fees.
Yeah. I love those type of people, man.
That's really funny.
If the government doesn't get their nut, you're going to be locked in a box.
Yeah.
That's the way it works, dude.
That's really funny.
I'm sorry. When it comes to government and the money that they think you owe them, you need to give them that money because they have all the guns.
Yeah.
As the argument goes, like there's nothing you could do about that, bro. Ask Wesley Snipes how that went. Did not work out so good. Brother went to prison for a while because his fucking tax guy was just feeding him a line of nonsense, and then he ended up getting kicked into jail for it because his accountant told him he didn't have to pay them taxes because this is America, goddammit. But yeah, so that's it. So we'll find out. It's going to be a long, delayed waiting game. Again, on the state deciding they don't want to uphold the will of the people.
Yeah.
Which, does that surprise you in the least? It's highly unfortunate. And if you really stop to think about it, like, it's pretty depressing when you think about it, that we can, as a state, pass something by a margin of a couple percent.
Several
regardless.
points, yeah.
A majority of people in the state say, we want this to happen, and we've gone through the legal or the channels to do it in legislation. We have voted that this is what we want you, the people that work for us, to do. And they're going to go, we can't do that.
Now.
Let's pump the brakes, guys. We got a lot of stuff going here. We'll see you in court. I'm not a fan.
It's really weird.
It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Really frustrating.
And it's understandable to see people, why people would lose a little bit of confidence in the government, That's, when the document literally says government of, by, and for the people. And we just, as the people, like you said, have voted to do something, and you're like, well, I want to fight that in court, though. That's...
What? Consult the RCW, bro.
Yeah.
You know what the RCW is?
It seems very strange.
The RCW? You ever heard of that? You're looking through a lot of state bills. You see a lot of call-outs to RCW, whatever. That's essentially our state collection of laws and amendments and stuff like that. That just lays out, that's the laws of the state, we'll say, are contained within the volumes of the RCW. And I want to know. I want to find out what that acronym meant again, because I forgot. It's the Revised Code of Washington. So it's the compilation of all permanent laws currently enforced in the U.S. state of Washington.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. It drives me, for my particular job, I have to read a lot of different statutes within the RCW, because they're consistently changing, and they're consistently vague and confusing, and they dictate how we legally have to do our jobs.
Yeah.
It's not fun. Not fun. But anyways, I did find out through this whole process, too, that, we have a Republican think tank, or conservative think tank in the state of Washington called the Washington Policy Center.
Interesting.
It's a non-profit organization.
A think tank, huh?
Yeah, a think tank. Which, as I've come to find out,
what the fuck does that even mean?
A think tank, because you hear that term thrown out a lot.
Group of dudes,
a great Washington think tank or whatever, right? These are guys that these are people that form a nonprofit company, and what their purpose essentially is to kind of become not so much lobbyists, but build up the ammunition that lobbyists need to get things done. So they look at particular industries and how things like Tim Einen's Initiative 976, they have a whole pamphlet of 11 pages on they pull citations and all the things about what it will do, what it's supposed to do, why it's good, depending on whether they like it or not. And so they're like political... I just want to say political think tanks, but
it's like a political op-ed almost.
Yeah.
Like an official
op-ed.
But they're
supposed to be guys that
there's legitimacy to it.
Yeah, they're supposed to look at data and facts and have philosophical discussions and help guide members through the process of, finding improvements in life. And, they're progressive. They're thinking about how policy should be so that we can all live better lives. That's what a think tank is.
Yeah.
And whether on the federal level or the state level. But I love this one. Their Washington Policy Center, their logo or their motto is improving lives through market solutions. That's how you know they're conservative, first of all, because they're talking about markets.
Through market solutions.
Yeah. And in here they specifically for this initiative, they break down some of the old MVET tax that used to be in place, the motor vehicles excise tax, and, how that was a failure and why it was a failure, and talk shit on the old governor, Gary Locke, and, all this shit. And they're just trying to convince you to see through their conservative lens to why this initiative is a good idea.
Yeah.
And they're really thought out. It's a really good read. I'm not going to lie. Went through that. And they got footnotes with citations from all sorts of different legal cases and, all sorts of stuff. But come to find out, the think tank actually only has 20 paid employees. The rest are interns and stuff like that. But they run this whole thing. They put on massive fundraisers and organizations. And
that's weird.
Yeah, it's really weird, man. It's very weird. This one in particular operates off of a $3.8 million annual budget. So I don't know what you need that for. I guess to throw massive
the 22 employees or whatever.
Parties. Yeah. So anyways.
Those people are employed there and they got to get paid, you know?
Yeah. And they're all, I'm sure, board members that, decide their own paychecks and
probably
all
have
that good stuff.
Salaries, you know?
Oh, I'm very sure they do. If there's only 20 of you and all you got to do essentially is, have discussions in a building and then throw big parties, try to get campaign fundraisers.
That sounds like the job to have.
Yeah, right.
Work in a think tank. Maybe we should start a think tank.
I'm not going to lie. I looked at their employment thing. She's over there barking at the door and stuff. But yeah, there's they do have an open position if you're interested in applying.
Really?
You have to be like some kind of crazy communications and marketing director, though. But I'm sure you're getting paid like $250,000 every year. So why not throw out a couple resumes at it?
That's what I'm talking about.
Right. Or like you said, we can start our own think tank.
Yeah.
We can parade ourselves around as nonpartisan.
I wonder if we can be a moderate think tank. I wonder if that's a thing.
We could probably do it by the numbers and just say we only you hire all the Democrats, I hire all the Republicans, and we just go 50-50 split all the way.
Like we have one building with two sides to it, and we just separate our business out.
But we have to be totally partisan about it. We can't let any independent thinkers come in. No Green parties, no Washington Socialist Party members.
None of that
have
shit.
That.
None of that shit.
We don't want any of that. Oh man.
Oh, so do you want to move on to sports for now, or why don't we?
How long have we been doing this? We got a second?
Yeah.
We haven't really talked pop culture in a minute. I guess we kind of did in the pre-show, though.
Yeah.
Pre-show has kind of become our pop culture half hour.
Well, why don't we take another brief little break, and you can watch that video that I sent you, and then I can call Jordan real quick, and I can talk to her about dinner.
Word.
So,
all right. We'll be right back. And we're back to
sports. Got him. We're out here.
Got him.
Okay, so we got a couple things on the docket today. The first one we're going to talk about is that video that you just watched, or references the video that you just watched about the Astros cheating scandal. So I just have a brief timeline. I don't have dates here, but just kind of a series of events. There was an initial article that was done by The Athletic that alleged that, there was players that had come out that said that the Astros had cheated in the 2017 season. And then after that, there was some videos. John Boy Media made a video.
Very good.
Excellent.
Didn't know it exists.
The first one that I showed you a couple weeks ago of the banging of the trash can, that one was by the same guy.
I could because he played that on this latest clip too.
Yeah. And so he did that, and then there was like a little bit of criticism, that he had only showed the one at bat. And so he said, he was like, all right, well, I'm telling you, if you look at any home game in the 2017 season, you're going to hear the banging.
Oh, yeah.
And so then there's this fucking Reddit mega thread, and I have the thread here. My computer,
dude, it looked massive.
Yeah. Oh, it's enormous. My computer disconnected from the internet, won't connect back because it's a piece of shit. But,
because essentially what we have here is a don't fuck with cats moment. He got on there and started talking about it after the Athletic article, and a lot of he challenged his followers and stuff to go out and do it and collect some more evidence and
mega thread of videos, timestamps, that accurately shows the cheating by the Astros. And so after that, they were punished. There was an investigation. They were punished. They were fined $5 million. And then the general manager and the manager were both suspended for a year. But then immediately after they were suspended, they were fired by the team. So that doesn't even matter anymore because they aren't on the team anymore. And they lost their first and second round picks in 2020 and 2021. And so, now there's all kinds of discussion about they should fucking get their rings taken away or their title and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how you take a ring from a grown man, how you're going to do that. But
well, when you phrase it like that,
I think the title thing is weird, because they won the World Series that year. How do you?
Well, what happened to McGuire and Those were individuals, though, not teams.
Right.
That's the difficult part.
Yeah, and we've had conversations about that at work, that like, what do you do? Because they won. Like, that event happened. That game still happened,
Yeah.
Even though Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds were juiced to the tits, they still hit all those fucking dingers in one season, That still happened. Like, they were juiced to the tits. They broke the rules. They hit a lot of fucking home runs, shitload of home runs.
They were pulled out of the Hall of Fame and stuff, right? For that, or
I'm fairly certain. I can't attest to that. I know. Yeah, I don't know enough about that to attest. I know that that they're not. Pretty sure they're not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So it's a whole. I feel a little embarrassed that I know about that, but
there's a Mark McGwire display at your place of business, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
That's right.
Yes.
I thought so.
And
that's so sad. But like, as a company, you don't have to be embarrassed about it.
What do you do? Yeah.
He's still sporting your shit, looking
what do
like
you do
a
about
badass.
it? Yeah. It's an odd thing,
It's tough.
and people like that shit. At the end of the day, I personally feel that, especially when it comes to baseball, you should have two different leagues, man. You should have one league where everyone's running all natural, no chemicals, no anything. Another league where anyone can juice to the safest measure possible.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how many home runs someone can hit when they are that fucking jacked that they can still hold a bat, but they're as yoked as possible.
Okay. We need to change this up even more. We can't just do C and D's on this one. We can't have a clean piss and a dirty piss. We got to have the dirty piss people need to have some baseball shoulder pads with some Road Warrior spikes and shit. We need to have real blood sport here.
My grandma once described to me, I should call her the next time we do the show and make her explain it to me.
What did I say that reminded you of a grandma story?
My grandma once explained to me a sport that she had created in her mind, right? In which you played, I hope that this is correct, in which you played basketball, football, and baseball all on the same field. Right?
No soccer.
And I don't think the soccer was involved. I'll have to call her next time. I'll call her and I'll ask her, because now I'm super interested. But yeah, it was a sport where all of these things were played on the same field and at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so you have to play your sport while also avoiding the other people playing their other sports at the same time. And she had like a whole system, of like scoring and it was an elaborate deal that she had constructed.
I'm into it.
And so I'll call her the next time that we do the show.
Baseball's too boring on its own. Football, I'm going to die. And basketball, I can't shoot hoops, but if we throw all three of them together, I'm sure I can fuck around with something.
It was interesting. I remember.
I'll find my skill.
It was years ago that she described this to me.
I mean, you throw the ball, I'll catch the ball.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to put it somewhere reliably.
So let's see here. I'm pulling up the NFL schedule so we can talk about the games that happened.
But before we completely move on, they fined them they punished them for their actions in 2017.
Yes.
But it looked like they'd continued to do it until now.
Looks like that's what's happening. There was also...
And nothing else was happening as far as punishment or anything.
Was also rumors last week, I believe, that some of the players were wearing what they're calling buzzers underneath their jerseys.
So they could just be like...
In which they would receive an electric shock, a slight electric shock, a signal for when there was going to be a pitch that they should swing at. And so that goes with, they were talking about having to do like clapping or hand signals or whatever the fuck because it was too loud. And that goes with the same thing. This is in the ALCS championship that this happened, where one of the players, Jose Altuve, hits a walk-off double home run, and then as he's coming around third base to home.
Wait, what?
Coming around third base to home, he's holding his shirt closed, and he's telling everyone, "Don't rip my shirt off. Don't rip my shirt off." You know, it's like super common to like for them to get their jerseys ripped off after a game like that. Yeah, just don't rip my shirt off. And then as he's in the crowd, he's holding his shirt closed, holding it closed, so that no one can pull his shirt off. So there's some more allegations coming out. You know, obviously the players say that there's no legitimacy to them, but
so on the flip side of this whole thing. Does this not require a buildup of some real split-second critical thing? I mean, split-second reactions that it's already you're hitting I don't care if it's a slow ball or an off-speed ball or whatever. How fast is that ball going? 90 fucking miles an hour.
Like even
85?
the off-speed ones that they were showing from Chapman were still like 85. You know, like that's still that 85 is pretty fucking fast.
Even. Like I can't hit 75 mile fastball. Mm. And now you're also going to have this audio fucking thing of you banging on a drum or shocking my tit or some shit that says, hey, this is going to be off speed.
Hit it.
I still have to, adjust everything in my mind. And that's still, no, fuck it. Let's just make the league okay with it everywhere. Let's get everybody on board this thing. How can you outsmart the other team? It's not just about how you play.
Crazy,
it's about
right?
how you fucking
It's
can
crazy.
Cheat. That's wild. So slight props to them for being a fucking athletic animals to be able to have split-second reaction time, but fuck off for cheating so blatantly.
So as far as football goes,
yes.
Right? Last weekend was the divisional round. The Texans played the Chiefs and got their dicks stomped by the Chiefs 51-31. It was it was a thrashing. It was some shit. Like,
man, I was kind of hoping the Texans would go.
Me too.
Tennessee's still in it though?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the week before. It was the Titans and the Chiefs won 35-24. In the very beginning, it looked like the Titans might have it. They were up like 10-0, I think, and it was like, oh shit, like this might happen. There's something really going on here. And then Patrick Mahomes said, no, hold my dick real quick before I leave. And so obviously they came back. The guys are ridiculous. The shit is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And then after that, the Packers played the 49ers, and the 49ers put the smacking on the Packers. It was Aaron Rodgers threw like 3 picks, I think. It was ugly. It was really, really ugly. So the Super Bowl.
Bad 2 weeks for me, bro.
Super Bowl next weekend, a week from tomorrow, is 49ers, Chiefs. It's in Miami. Some shit. The game is at 3:30, you know? So,
and that like actually has the potential to be a good fucking game.
It's going to be a fucking great game.
49ers are nuts.
Yeah.
Chiefs have been crazy. I mean, usually Super Bowls kind of suck as a general rule. Unless your teams are playing. Because then there's stakes. But usually the Super Bowl is one of the worst games in the entire year. Historically, right?
This is going to be a great game.
And this is lined up to be a good one. I hate to give it to the 49ers, but they're fucking tough goddamn team this year.
They're good, and their defense is good, and I'm excited to see
who are they playing as quarterback right now?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. Garoppolo.
Jimmy G still running.
Man, my boy.
Running the game, bro. Running the game. Yeah.
Dude, hook me up this year
the
for
49ers
a little bit.
Have a fantastic defense, and I'm excited to see the Chiefs offense contend with that because all the receivers on the Chiefs are so fucking fast. Mm-hmm. They're all so incredibly fast. So I'm excited to see how that gets handled. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so fun to watch.
Sherman's still running safety for
corner, yeah.
Corner.
Yeah.
But he's kind of lost a little prestige as a corner, if I'm not wrong.
He gets slept on, you know, but he's still good. Like, he's still good. He's
just not number one anymore.
He doesn't get, like, as many takeaways as he used to, but he's still a good, like, defensive corner. You know, he's still a good player. He just doesn't get the picks and stuff that he used to. Yeah. But it's just not as many. He's still doing shit. Yeah.
You can't be number one forever, bro.
He's still an incredibly valuable member of that defense. Yeah. Like, there's no doubt. I would still like to have him in Seattle. I was sad to see Richard Sherman go. I don't care. Everyone talks shit about his fucking antics and his attitude, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't play good on my team. You know,
we got enough characters.
I just don't give a shit.
Always throwing stupid fouls. What's one more?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Yeah. I just don't care. It doesn't bother me. You know, it's not a problem of mine. So I just don't. I felt the same way about like Michael Bennett. You know, that people are like, oh, he's a fucking asshole. He's always talking all the time. I don't give a shit. You know, he's fucking like he was good. So I don't know.
It's the Tom Cruise argument. I don't care if he's crazy and says stupid shit. He's still great at what I want him to do.
Good at this.
You know,
I'd like it.
I like it. Okay, jeez,
that's really funny.
That's my thermostat for everything. It's the Tom Cruise effect. You can be the most batshit crazy person alive, but if you're good at what you're doing, and what you're doing is something that I enjoy, I don't give a fuck if you're a crazy person in real life. I mean, there's some lines there, like, you know, pedophilia and like sexual assault and all the murder and shit. Maybe, you know, OJ is still kind of like wild on Twitter, but, you know, I don't give a shit about your personal life.
OJ's crazy.
OJ's crazy. Politics, on the other hand, I care about your personal life because you're supposed to be, that is who you're supposed to be.
It matters to me.
But definitely not in sports.
No.
I don't know. I kind of have a hard time with sports too, because there's always that that angle that you're a you're a role model for the youth and all this stuff, because you are.
Absolutely.
You know, because you've definitely, it's
especially in football.
What is professional sports but overcoming adversity in all forms, right?
Yeah.
And so you are naturally supposed to be somebody that children can look up to, but I don't know. It's also a fucking professional sport, so I'm probably just asking too much. That's really what it comes down to.
Most of them are really good role models. Most of them, you know.
Not everybody's a Russ, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Not everybody's always over at the children's hospital volunteering once a week.
Not everyone loves Jesus. You know? All right, you ready to get the fuck out of here?
Yeah, I mean that not everybody loves Jesus line was good enough for me, but
you know, man, don't try and give me that, okay? You told me that your favorite singer is Will Smith, so yes, this is your fault.
Fresh Prince, bro.
Fresh Prince, bro.